Alright, hey guys. Welcome to my Lopes versus Silva Fight Night breakdown. I do think I'm a bit sick, so if I seem off, I'm sorry about that. Please let me know if you guys can hear me. Alright, cool. Nice. Still sick? Probably sick again. I don't remember the last time I was sick, but probably been a minute. I'll probably go through some of the fights a little bit quicker this time, but yeah, we'll start with the 10 or so minutes of questions as usual. Hamzat versus Ilya at 170, who wins? I think that if Hamzat had to cut back down to 170, he would gas really quickly. Like, probably even faster than before, because I'm assuming he has put on some weight to make 185 and, be as big as possible there. So, I think that if he were to cut down to 170, all Ilya has to do is survive, a round. Not guaranteed he can do that, but I would probably lean towards he can. So I'd probably pick Ilya, but just based on the conditional of okay, the weight cut's gonna kill Chimaev. You called the BSD fight perfectly. Thank you. If it weren't for your autoimmune issues, you'd be UFC champ. Thank you. I'm mad they did my city like this, not gonna lie. What do you mean by that? Since Silva and Diego have beef, he will in fact bark if he ices Diego, and that's my 13th reason why. Fair. I think I think if Diego at least touches gloves and stuff, unlike Bryce, he probably won't be as dramatic about it after the fight. I was gonna go because I love Silva but can't do it. Fair enough. I still remember people saying that Rufi is the guy to beat Ilya. I understand why stylistically that would be a thought. It's just, yeah, I mean, he's the same way that BSD broke him with forwards pressure. It would have been the same with Ilya. Ilya would have just put him on the back foot. There would be a bit more of an opportunity to land on Ilya because he's not gonna run at you like BSD will. But yeah, he's still not ready for that. Is he on Twitch or something? Who? Ante Delia looked very good for a heavyweight at least. Yeah, I mean, he should be an interesting addition to the roster. I don't think he's gonna go too far. He is kind of chinnable, and whenever he gets behind, he kind of just gives up. But at least we'll get a good first round out of him, which is more than we've been getting from most heavyweights lately. So I can't complain. Do you think Ilya could have a chance with Crawford? I mean, with gloves, with boxing gloves, it doesn't favor him. I think the interesting compromise that would make a lot more sense for these crossover fights is box with 4-ounce gloves. And if they box with 4-ounce gloves, I would actually favor Ilya. I didn't see Mauricio not handling the pressure like that, not gonna lie. I don't blame you, most people didn't see it. I think the fault is on most people who are analysts just saying Rufi would be fine. Because yeah, if you're not someone who's gonna watch tape all day, yeah, obviously, it's hard to notice stuff like that. But for people who did, I don't know why they thought Rufi would be able to handle it when he's been proven not to many times. It was very strange. Is there any other contender you're really sure of becoming champion besides Jean Silva? That's a good question. Let me look at the rankings. So maybe okay. I was very confident in Tatsuro Taira. The problem now is I don't know how he necessarily matches up with Josh Van. So those two are like the only people who I think will rule 125. It's going to be one of them's going to be the champion, one's going to be the number one contender. I wouldn't be shocked if they had like a Moreno versus Figgy style like trilogy, quadrilogy, whatever happened there. I'm confident one of them will be champ, especially after Pantoja's gone. I just don't know which now. I thought he would be able to improve it, but he just didn't and broke. Yeah, it's very hard for people to improve like ingrained stylistic issues. Um, Especially like given his stance and how he counter strikes in general. It's like I'm sure the fighting nerds will now put a lot of effort into like reworking his style a bit to the point that it's doable. But until they had a reason to be like, okay, we need to make massive changes, it just doesn't really. How do you think Max does against Ilya at 155? I actually think it might be even worse for Max, in all honesty. I know he can probably take a bit more damage at 155, and I do believe he is more dangerous at 155, but Ilya's getting better, which is the scary thing about it. Um, I think Ilya probably finishes him quicker, in all honesty. Like, Ilya usually needed a lot of forward pressure in the past, and he kind of needed you against the fence to land the overhands, but his timing has gotten so much better. Like, the way that he knocked out Oliveira, even though it may have been like expected technically, doing it in the center with kind of like an intercepting shot was something very impressive to me. Josh eats Tyra for breakfast, in my opinion. It's possible. I think what people underestimate about Tyra is, unlike a lot of the other wrestlers, which Josh can do very well against, Tyra is perfectly content to strike for a while. Like, he will try to drop you on the feet, especially if you can't get a takedown. So I do think Tyra is a tricky matchup for Josh, but I also would not be surprised if Josh won. I think Max has a better chance at 155, good power and better chin. If we took the Ilya that fought Max at 145 and then we have him fight 155 Max, I would agree. But I think that current Ilya is much superior to the version of Ilya that fought Max, and I don't think skill for skill Max is much better than himself that fought Ilya. I think Max also, his durability seems to be fading a bit. He was getting more hurt by Poirier than I would have liked. Bro, there are people who think that Silva's going to win by decision, like unless it's 50 to 42, that shit ain't happening. Yeah, I agree with you there. I don't see how this goes at distance. What's your dream fight, and how do you think Jean Silva versus the 10 at lightweight? I seem to be in the top 10 at lightweight. I think that Silva versus Topuria would be a very fun fight. So we could call that a dream fight. How does Jean Silva do versus top 10 at lightweight? Let's see. I think he could beat most of them. I think that Armin could be a weird style for him. It's never easy to fight Gamrot either, but I think he would make most of it work. I would say the most tricky matchup by far is Ilya for him, which is like pretty much a 50-50 in my opinion, just because of how good Jean's reads are, but he is behind in the footwork there. I do think he will go up eventually, so it'll be interesting to see. Could Van beat Pantoja? I think Van might be too small. It's very tough to say, because if Van can stuff the first takedown, he's probably going to win the fight. We just don't really know if he can stuff that takedown. Especially if he focuses on body strikes that fight. I think that he has a better chance of trying to finish Pantoja than most people do, because of the fact that he doesn't have to crack the chin. Like, you're not going to crack Pantoja's chin unless you like severely hurt him to the body first. But if he was to just completely destroy the body over, say, 2 to 3 rounds, he could finish him potentially. Max did good work with those oblique kicks in his fight versus Ilya. He did, but I'm assuming that Ilya fixed that. Like, he's not the type to leave a weakness like that evident after it getting exposed. Is there a guy that can beat Ilya? The best chances are Jean Silva and JDM at 170, but I'm not like I probably would not pick JDM, but JDM definitely has a solid chance. Jean Silva, I'm not positive I would pick. I also had a very similar issue of getting pressure to the fence. Yeah, it's definitely a fighting nerds issue in general, other than Silva, who's just the anomaly there. Coria only hurt him once because of a forearms at the back of the head, I thought. I think it hit the side of the head. It wasn't like back of the head, but it was like kind of like temple, not like he got rocked from the chin. It's just his reactions to shots were not. It's not what it used to be. I don't really know why. Well, I guess it's just age and damage. I shouldn't say I don't know why. But he seemed a lot less durable even when getting hit by like the regular shots. Van has plot armor in my opinion, fair enough. I'm picking JDM over Ilya just because I'm an Ilya hater. Fair. JDM definitely has a solid chance, to say the least. Silva seems to only really focus on certain aspects, like the complete distance for Charles grappling. Disdain, okay. For Charles grappling and Bryce stand-up. What do you think? He focuses on what he needs to for that specific fight, for sure. If he doesn't need to care about something, he won't. Which makes sense, because then you just specialize in your prep for what you need to deal with, and therefore you will be fine, probably. So, it's definitely a valid approach. I guess the only issue is if, like, somehow one of his opponents comes in with a completely different game plan than they ever had prior. It's not an easy thing to do, though, so I don't think it's going to be the biggest issue for him. Yeah, people thought Kai was Pantoja's nightmare matchup. Kai just didn't have the physicality to stuff the takedowns. Yeah, and he just didn't have the understanding of the scrambling either. Jean Silva can adapt way better than the other fighting nerds because his style, he's not stuck in a Muay Thai stance or a karate stance. Yeah, he changes his stance a lot, which definitely helps. How is Jean Silva's boxing like? It's pretty solid. He does definitely supplement it with like lead elbows and such if you're having too much success in the boxing. So, I mean, I would say his dirty boxing, whatever you want to call it, is better than like his pure boxing. How well do you think Umar matches up to Jan and O'Malley? Jan is a really bad matchup for him, in my opinion, because I don't think he's going to be able to take down and control Jan. So I think Jan is going to be able to just build into the fight and do a lot of damage later. O'Malley, on the other hand, like, from what we've seen, he should beat O'Malley. O'Malley is very talented, so he has a chance to evolve. But, like, yeah, based on what we've seen, O'Malley does not have the scrambling to deal with Umar. No worries about the spelling, Gabriel. How would Jean Silva do against Yair? Could be harder to... I think he would just crowd Yair, put a lot of pressure, because you definitely can shut down Yair if you just stay in his face constantly. He would also have... John has... I say he doesn't have as good footwork as Ilya, but he still has very good footwork. So compared to most people, it's going to be fine for him. Do you watch enough boxing to have a prediction on Canelo versus Crawford? Boxing is not my specialty by any means, so take this with a grain of salt. I am leaning Crawford if I have to pick. I think that, again, he is a little bit more skilled, and he is definitely faster. And I think between the two of them, he has a solid shot. Could he get caught once and he gets dropped like 1 or 2 rounds, and because of that he falls behind and loses on the scorecards? Very possible. But I do think that his speed is going to be more problematic for Canelo than people are thinking. Yeah, Sean is my guy, but I'd be very anxious if he was quite valid. Pratis is definitely working on his game on the back foot. Roofing, same. Yeah, I mean, anyone can evolve if they put enough effort into it. Alright, let's get into a few fights here. Okay, I really need to figure out how to fix the delay, because I think the delay is like 5 seconds or so right now, but whatever, on. So, Ultimate Fighter finale, Sezinando versus Donchenko. There's not the most high quality tape on these two, in my opinion. Sezinando is like pretty much a pure grappler, anything on the feet he throws out is really just going to be to distract you, to get you to the ground. His wrestling is not the cleanest. Sometimes he needs to just get you to the fence and then get you down from there and so on. He's really just like kind of a grinder who's going to try to win the minutes via the grappling. There's no crazy submission ability or anything like noteworthy. He's honestly like the most boring fighter the Ultimate Fighter had this season, so kind of sad that he made it to the finals in my opinion. Donchenko is, I would say, an educated brawler. He's mainly looking to throw hooks in the pocket. He's going to apply a lot of forward pressure and try to break you down more so in the striking and actually finish you. So a lot more entertaining than Sezinando. I have to probably pick Donchenko here because I don't think he's going to get pushed back to the fence. And if you're not getting pushed back to the fence, Sezinando has to like land a clean takedown in the open, which I don't think he's going to be able to do. So Donchenko should be able to keep the fight in the pocket and just focus on his hooks and probably get a finish like in the second round is what my prediction would be here. How would Jean Silva game plan against Ilya? I would have to rewatch Ilya tape to predict that. What a card fair. If Topuria actually made it to the Jan fight for his debut at 135 in 2018, how would that have gone? I think 135 would have destroyed Topuria. I don't think he would have done well there. Like, not in the skill sense, just his weight cut would have been atrocious. He barely made 145. This is another weird fight here to predict. So, Rendon is mostly a grappler. Her stand-up isn't atrocious. She can throw in the feet, but it's mainly just like, oh, we're just throwing blast like jab overhands from a distance without like any setup or real intention to land it. She can kind of chase people in the Daria fight. Like Daria was kind of just moving around while Rendon was chasing her and whiffing overhands. Very strange sequence. But yeah, Rendon's grappling is okay. It's nothing dangerous. Her control isn't spectacular. It's just mainly, can she get you to the ground, hold you there long enough, land a few strikes to take rounds. No finishing threat whatsoever, but yeah, just pure point fighter, sort of well-rounded, I guess. Alice Pereira, for those of you who don't know, is not Alex Pereira's sister. Alex Pereira's sister is much older. Alice Pereira is 19 years old, I believe, and it is very difficult to find tape on her. I was not really able to find full fights. I was able to just find clips for the most part. And the clips are impressive. She is very explosive. She does seem relatively well-rounded. Like, in one of her fights, she was just throwing, like, a bunch of flying knees whenever her opponent would lean down at all. She will mix things up, especially the longer the fight goes. So in her last fight, she went a full 25 minutes, and after she realized she couldn't knock the person out, it seemed like she switched more to grappling and was like, okay, I'm just going to show my full skill set now. Not knocking out a fighter with a terrible record is not the best look. That was Pereira's last fight, for context. But generally speaking, I think she's explosive enough that she is going to be able to deal with Rendon's takedowns, and on the feet, she definitely does have the advantage. I do think that also, with fights like this, you kind of know the UFC is setting up someone to win, because ultimately they're not going to like bring a 19-year-old in and then give them a matchup that's going to be difficult for them and make them look bad. I'm going to pick Pereira by decision. She needs to try to get a knockout here if she wants to like legitimize herself. So I wouldn't be surprised with a knockout either. I'm just not sure if she's able to knock out higher level competition because she struggled with someone who had just a bit more experience. On the bright side, her cardio is probably not going to get fraud checked since she has gone 5 rounds. But yeah, it is a very weird fight, and I kind of wish they put her on like Contender Series or something so we knew a bit more about her. The UFC is promoting Alice Pereira a lot, so the UFC sees something in her. Yeah, I mean, she's very explosive for a WMMA fighter, so I'm not surprised, but it is a bit of a strange circumstance. I'm curious how Diego's fight with Volk might impact his fight against Silva. I think there are obvious struggles. Oh, we'll have to see how Diego tries to evolve. I honestly don't really know. We'll have to see, yeah. Alessandro Costa versus Alden Coria. So, Alessandro Costa is... He's basically going to do everything in quick exchanges. So he's kind of like a... I guess you would say like a modified Muay Thai style fighter. He throws a lot of calf kicks. That's basically how he got his last win against Kevin Borjas. He just chewed up the leg completely. With his hands, he's gonna like take quick exchanges. So he'll throw like 3 hooks in the pocket, then disengage, and then kind of just repeat that process over and over. He did also hurt Urseg briefly with an overhand, I believe. So his striking is somewhat legit, although I would not say he's top level right now. Alden Coria is weird because he looks bad in every single fight he's in, but then manages to win. So Coria basically is, how would I put it? He's mainly a striker at this point, even though he seemingly started as a grappler. With the grappling, he's mainly going to go to like the single leg and then try to run the pipe from there. But on the feet, he's very hittable. Like, his defense is kind of just like put his hands somewhere that is not a high guard by any means and back up. So it's a very strange... I don't know why he got signed to the UFC, in all honesty. Like, he's not ready for this level of competition. His striking when he is throwing is okay. Like, he is very powerful, and that's why he's gotten his wins. Like, he kind of just loses until he wins type of thing. But against UFC level competition, I just don't see that working. So am I saying that right? Alessandro Costa should be able to just throw stuff and not get clipped by something massive and wear on Coria until he can finish him. So I'm going to say Costa by second round TKO. Why didn't you put the Insta story that you were going to stream? Because I'm sick and like this is probably not the best representation of me streaming. So for those of you who want to be here every time, I'm glad you're here, but I'm not going to promote this stream too much like I normally would, if you get what I mean. Also off topic, I really like Douglas's power is insane for one. Fair. Is getting slept by Amir a bad look? That's a good question. It's not a good look, for sure. I just don't think it really matters in this fight. Like, I would not think that Costa is going to go very far by any means. But against someone like Coria, who just doesn't have good defense, I mean, like, yeah, there's a reason why Costa is minus 455 here. Like, Coria should not be... I don't think he even should get a contender series shot with his current skills. And it's like, not that he doesn't have potential. Like, he hits hard, and he has a decent wrestling base when he decides to use it, but he's just not ready. Bro's giving us a private showing, pretty much, yeah. Way back, hey. Korea's probably in the UFC because of Van. Fair. Yeah, I mean, I guess if they're the same gym, I didn't even look at that, but if they're the same gym, then that definitely could have contributed. I know some people have been hyped for, like, Korea's debut. I just don't see it. Maybe he'll surprise everyone, but I don't see what people glazing him see in him. Okay, Zachary Reese versus Sedriques Dumas. So, one thing I will say to start this is that Dumas isn't as bad as people want to make him out to be. Like, he has a decent game plan in the sense that he'll just use a bunch of kicks, he'll use his jab from distance, and then he'll try to shoot. There's nothing dangerous in what he does, but it is methodical, it can work, it's not horrific. It's not great, but it's not horrific. Zachary Reese is a lot less predictable because he has a very interesting level of fight IQ, but he is significantly more talented. He has one-shot knockout power in pretty much everything he throws. He has decent jiu-jitsu off of his back. His wrestling is not terrible when he decides to actually use it and not just go to his back. The problem, of course, is he will just go to his back and look for, like, the worst submissions of all time for no reason and then just get finished. against Bakoyev, I feel like that was a fight that Reese really could have won, but then he decided to go for an armbar and swing his hips fully while not even having his legs past the elbow. So that is what it is. Reese is mainly going to like fight like a distance striker, Muay Thai style, basically. He's gonna blast the 1-2. He's gonna look for like front kicks to the face and so on. He has a lot of ways of winning and ending this fight. If the fight goes to the ground, as much as I criticize Reese for just looking for subs for no reason, he probably can sub Dumas. If it's on the feet, he's probably going to catch Dumas with something, and unlike Mikhail, who has a lot of power but doesn't really put people out cold, if Reese lands clean, he's going to put Dumas out cold. So I do think that like people are like, oh, Dumas needs this win because he has whatever, $18 in his bank account, so he's going to be more motivated and fight better. Like, being more motivated doesn't give you more skills. So Reese should be able to clip him and finish him probably in round 1 here. Dumas, I was very disappointed when Reese pulled guard against Bakoyev. Yeah, same. Dumas has $12 in his bank account. He's got to win. He has to. I don't think he will, though. Ilya or Ryan Garcia. I mean, depends on the sport. In boxing, I'd still favor Ryan Garcia, but if we say 4-ounce gloves, I'm going to favor Ilya. Dumas looks like he chose the archetype of striker, but used all his skill points in grappling, so he ends up being crowd up both. Because if you get the video game reference. Yeah, I do. I get what you mean. Yeah, that's valid. I don't know why he's so insistent on the grappling. Like, his kicks aren't bad. He could definitely improve his striking, but that's what it is. Zachary Reese is an athletic freak, but he has bad IQ and bad cardio. I think he's kind of fixed the cardio aspect. I believe he won round 3 in his last fight, if I'm not losing my mind. And he did do okay, even like beating up Medina for 3 rounds. But yeah, his fight IQ is absolutely atrocious. I like Zach too much. I think Dumas hits the back of Zach's head because he's chinny there and he's gone. Dumas just has no power, though. I mean, that would be crazy if Dumas got a finish. It's just Dumas literally has 0 power whatsoever, which is very weird given his build. This is basically a contest, and the winner is the next highlight for another middleweight fair. Pound for pounds, Ilya or DJ? Right now I would still say DJ, but Ilya gets another win and probably Ilya. Alright, Jesus Aguilar versus Luis Gurule. So, Aguilar is just pretty much every single thing he does is with an attempt to end the fight. It is not to score points, it is not to get position, it's just he's trying to kill you at every single moment. So, Aguilar will of course pull guillotine, that's what he's best known for. His guillotine is also very good because his arms are so short. I think he has the shortest male reach in the UFC, and with that, if he's able to lock his hands in the guillotine, you're just done realistically. He even had Taira in a bit of danger. The reason why Taira was able to escape is because Taira was already half passed onto the opposite side. And even then, Taira was like definitely visibly very uncomfortable in the guillotine until he was able to get some space. So Aguilar's submissions cannot be slept on at all. On the feet, he's mainly going to like lunge in with like jab overhand, stuff like that. He has the power to flatline people with one shot, which we saw against Shannon Ross. Generally speaking, dangerous everywhere, but if you're able to establish control because of the fact that he's trying to constantly end the fight, like Taira was and Esteban were, then you can definitely either just get points or work towards a finish. Gurule, on the other hand, is more of like the technical boxer archetype at 125. He really throws in combinations all the time, has a lot of forward pressure. He does have the grappling as well, though on the ground, like, even though he can get control, he doesn't really seem great at advancing position too much or working to a finish there. He's just going to land, like, basically points gathering strikes, nothing more. I am very surprised that Gurule is the favorite here, because even though Gurule's boxing style looks pretty, I don't think it's very effective, because at 125, you don't really want a ridiculously high volume style. When you have a high volume style like that, you leave yourself open to counters, and 125, they're way too fast to leave openings for counters. in the Ode Osborne fight, we saw that, where Gurule is like trying to throw combos, and Ode is like, okay, I'll just wait and then blast you with a hook because you're going to be open. So I think that Aguilar has a lot of paths to victory here. I'm going to pick Aguilar, and I'm going to say by first round submission with the guillotine, because I think he could like do something weird, like kick Gurule's leg out and then just jump on a guillotine, or something erratic that leads to that sequence. I also would not be surprised by like an overhand finish, same way as Gurule kind of got caught by Ode. I don't think Gurule's really UFC quality in all honesty, but we'll find out. Maybe he changed things after the Ode fight and he can get a win here. Has Josh Van made adjustments to be the best striker at flyweight? There's definitely an argument for that, yeah. I would say probably right now. Silva losing, very unlikely. I mean, Ravel has a high volume based style, even Van to an extent. So, yes, Van did, for sure. And I criticized that style after he got caught by Johnson because of the fact that basically the same thing played out there. Van was the better fighter, but was so dependent on the volume that, like, eventually he just gave something up. But after that fight, Van started changing his style to be less volume dependent. Even though he still kept decent volume, he sat down a lot harder on counters and stopped throwing naked body strikes and such. So Van kind of modified his style to be less volume dependent, while Gurule still is volume dependent. With Royval, I somewhat agree, but there is also a lot of danger in everything he throws, and he's very long. Because of his length, he can get away with it a little bit more. Granted, it still leaves the weakness that he had, that I was talking about, where he tends to like enter with his hands down and get countered and such. But generally speaking, because he's more dynamic and long, he's able to get away with. Aguilar via being Mexican and Noche card, fair. Van versus Moreno, who do you think wins? At this point, I would lean Van. I think that Prime Moreno might take it, but I don't think we're at all close to Prime Moreno, unfortunately. Best striker at 125 is Copper Van. That's a valid take. Mighty Mouse, Prime, GSP, same weight, who wins? Mighty Mouse, because at the lower weight classes you have to be more skilled. So if we could scale them up and keep the skills, then the lower weight fighter's usually going to win. Alright, Suarez versus Lemos. So, I mean, this fight has a very obvious conclusion. Lemos doesn't have the best takedown defense. She's a very dangerous striker, but she also doesn't really set things up. She kind of just throws. If she lands, she will hurt you, and she can either win decisions that way or usually more so get the finish. But she can't stuff a takedown for her life. She did kind of improve that in her last fight a little bit, but she still got taken down in round 3 and controlled the entire time, and Lucindo is nowhere near as good a wrestler as Suarez is. Suarez cannot punch for her life. All she does is kick at a distance and then shoot takedowns. She will like lunge into the clinch from 10 feet away. It's not fun to watch, but against this level of competition, it will probably work. All she really has to do is throw the kicks, wait for Lemos to try to approach to land something, shoot under. She'll take Lemos down, probably sub-earn rounds. This is really not going to be competitive, in my opinion. Don't want to spend too much time on that. Do you see Islam beating JDM? If so, what fights would you make at 170 for the top 15? I'm leaning towards JDM, but I do think it's a tough fight because JDM has not fought that type of style before. A lot of people say, like, oh, Bilal, but Bilal's just not good at anything, especially defensively. Like, Islam is a lot more defensively responsible than Bilal is. Bilal, you throw a strike, you're probably going to land it. Against Islam, he's going to fade back, he's going to throw the counter, he's going to slip out, etc. He still is very predictable, Islam that is, but it is definitely a trickier matchup for JDM than Bilal is. I could see Lemos knocking down Suarez early. Suarez is very tentative and waits a lot. Suarez over 3.5 takedowns. I don't think Suarez over 3.5 takedowns because she could finish the fight with 1. Lemos could knock down Suarez early, but I wouldn't rely on it personally because it's just like Lemos doesn't really set things up well enough. And Suarez also is not does not have a weak chin, let's say. Like, she took some shots from Weili that were pretty substantial. And I think she knows that she doesn't want to get hit by Lemos, so she's just going to be patient until Lemos overextends. I know for a fact that Lopes is going to wrestle, and he's going to wrestle hard. They've realized their limitations in striking, and John's more dangerous than Volk. He might, for sure, yeah. I see Tatiana getting dropped, running like a Scooby-Doo character, and then getting subbing Lemos. It's possible. I mean, it would be more entertaining if it was some back and forth. I don't quite think we're going to have any back and forth, but that would be fun. How exactly do you see Islam versus Ilya going? The problem with Islam versus Ilya is Islam backs up too reliably, straight to the fence, and he also has a very predictable countering sequence where he'll throw the left hook and he'll like slip the first shot, and then his hands will just go to random places and he'll back straight up with his chin up. So Ilya's basically just gonna do what he did to Volk, where he's just gonna, what he did to Volk and what Volk did to Islam in one sequence in round 2, where Ilya's just gonna throw something to pull out the counter, slip under it, keep extending, and then walk Islam into the overhand right. So I'm pretty confident Ilya would knock out Islam in round 1 or 2, honestly speaking. Do you need to set up anything that well against Suarez? The only reason you need to is because she's not going to engage in the punching. So, like, you need to have a way of trapping her or getting her to, like, walk into the strike. Silva by submission is not crazy to say. It's not the highest chance, but I wouldn't be shocked either. Lopes was literally training with David Taylor. I have no idea what your question means, MMA Stilly. Not gonna lie. Okay, anyways. I always mess up how to pronounce this guy's name. It's, is it Puelles? Claudio Puelles, I think, versus Joaquim Silva. So, Silva is, like, basically the, he's what you'd think of when you talk about, like, a power puncher, in the sense that he's just very slow, but he hits very hard if he does land. He keeps a very strong base at all times. He kind of just wades forwards and then tries to, like, unleash all of his weight with his, like, left hook and sometimes, like, overhand right and such. There's nothing particularly interesting about him. Like, he's not bad anywhere, in all honesty. Like, he can wrestle. His striking is what he wants to do. He will attempt submissions if you take him down. All around, okay fighter. Just was never good enough to get that far. Puelles, on the other hand, he only can grapple. Like, his strikes consist of throwing a southpaw high kick to try to get your hands up so he can then grapple. Otherwise, he's just going to dive at your legs, either with a takedown or with, like, an Imanari roll. If he can't get either of those, he basically, I mean, we saw what happened against Hooker. He just kind of has nothing and then eventually gives up. The interesting thing about Puelles is, in his last fight, which was against Ziam, which was a while ago, so he hasn't fought in some time, his takedowns did look dramatically improved. So, taking down Ziam, I think, 7 times is definitely an accomplishment, especially because we've seen since how good Ziam is. So, because of that, I do have to lean towards Puelles here, even though it's a very, like, tentative and questionable pick because of the fact that he literally has nothing on the feet. But Silva did get taken down by Clay Guida twice. If you're getting taken down by Clay Guida, I think someone who's able to take down Ziam is probably going to be able to take you down. I don't expect Puelles to be able to sub Silva. He literally has, like, BJJ in his nickname, so... And he's never been subbed, never been close to being subbed. Granted, he hasn't fought a submission specialist, so sometimes things can surprise you there. But it's probably just going to be a control-heavy decision for Puelles. If Puelles got dropped on the feet because he wasn't able to get a takedown for like 30 seconds and just had no idea what to do, I wouldn't be shocked either. But yeah, I mean, the pick has to be Puelles' decision here, in my opinion. Hey, spinning crotch kick. Puelles is Peruvian Reinhold, pretty much, yeah. Over 1.5 rounds. Solid chance at over 1.5 rounds, yeah. When are we getting that Python-based calculus stream? Oh, we forgot about that. Fair enough. Silva hurt Arman, don't forget. He did. It's just that was the only good thing he did in that fight. The rest of the fight, it was just terrible. He did land the left hook. I think that says more about Arman, to be honest, than it does about Silva, though. Joaquim genuinely had a tough one with Clay, and Puelles gave up Ryan Hall maxing. Yeah, which is why you do have to pick Puelles, in my opinion. It's just going to be a weird fight because he doesn't land the most damage on the ground, even when he's there. So if he's just like constantly going for subs, he'll probably win off of like submission attempts, but he's not going to like punch and do damage and stuff like that on the ground like you would want, unless he like dramatically change things. All right, another lovely fight. I don't know how Zachary Reese, who beat Todorovic, is lower than Todorovic versus someone who doesn't have a single UFC win or even competitive fight. But here we are. I can't break down Medina because he sucks at literally everything. He has nothing on the feet, he has nothing on the ground, he has nothing if he even somehow takes you down, and he has nothing off of his back. He's probably the worst fighter to ever make it into the UFC, and that's saying a lot. Todorovic, on the other hand, at least has a high-pressure style. His takedowns are not great, but because he's constantly shooting and he's trying to push you against the fence and then lands like small strikes there, he can rack up points, he can exhaust people, and so on. Todorovic's striking mainly just consists of like running forwards and throwing hooks or like sometimes 1-2s. Nothing special, but it's a lot more dangerous and a lot better than Medina. This should be a pretty straightforward fight in the sense that Todorovic can probably get the fight down if he wants to. He can probably just win on the feet if he wants to. Hard to say which he's going to do. The only question is, can he finish Medina? After seeing Medina versus Reese, I don't think Todorovic is going to be finishing Medina unless he like goes for a sub, which is possible, but I don't think it's going to happen. Gautier just has a different level of power, which is why he was able to drop and put out Medina, in my opinion. Todorovic probably wins a 30-27 decision here, maybe a 30-26. Only caveat to that would be if he has a sub-heavy game, well, you can't like have an iron chin through a sub. Medina's getting 12-12 to be a CTE punching bag. Yeah, exactly. What UFC fighter looks like you the most? You guys asked this last week. I don't really know, in all honesty. Bolivian punching bag versus middle rank Serbian. Yeah, pretty much. You've been watching UFC longer than me. Is this the worst card you've ever seen? No, definitely not. I wish this was the worst card, but this is not. Paulo Costa, obviously. Fair. Alright. At least this is a much more interesting fight than the... So, Diego Ferreira, thankfully, is one of the most entertaining gatekeepers we have in this sport, if not the most entertaining gatekeeper we have. He is technically a jiu-jitsu first fighter, so he does want to take you down and sub you, but he's become extremely scrappy on the feet. He will throw overhands, he will brawl if you want to. There's no immense setups, but he's solid everywhere. And unlike my criticism of people being well-rounded but not good at everything, at least Ferreira is somewhat dangerous everywhere and is like a level above the well-rounded but not good at anything. So Alexander Hernandez is very dangerous in round one. He has the one-punch knockout power to put people out. The Hooper stoppage was a little bit premature, but Hooper was not looking good. I have no idea what he was doing in that fight. Hernandez, of course, is probably best known for the Dariush knockout. Dariush being a bit chinny, combined with, of course, Hernandez's round one knockout power, and the fact that Dariush kind of got caught sleeping caused that scenario. But Hernandez is like settled into this mid-ground of being okay, but just never being able to evolve, really. Like, he's a little bit better than he was, of course, early in his UFC run, but he doesn't seem substantially better. Like, he still has the same thing where, okay, in round one, he's extremely dangerous and he can drop you. But, like, as soon as we leave round one, well, he's probably just going to point fight. If he's not having success on the feet, he'll try to take you down a few times. He's very reliant on his cross. He doesn't have any big, what would be the word, diversity in the techniques he throws or anything like that. So even though, like, Ferreira is extremely old, and theoretically, like, this should be a passing of the guard type movement, I think that Ferreira probably wins this, because he's not going to get chinned like Hooper did. Like, Hooper's striking was so atrocious, and it still took Hernandez basically 5 minutes to find a shot that dropped him. Hooper was just throwing wild spinning back fists and like lunging in for no reason. That was so embarrassing from Hooper, especially because the UFC was trying to push it, but it is what it is. But yeah, point being, Ferreira's not going to do that. So if Ferreira doesn't do that, and he's able to drag Hernandez into deeper waters, which is what like Billy Quarantillo did, even the other Billy, sorry, I'm blanking on his. Bill Algeo, yeah. So these guys kind of just used volume to start wearing on Hernandez, and Quarantillo was able to finish him. Algeo took a dominant decision. Hernandez's wins against Hubbard and Holloway have both aged very poorly, because Hubbard was a split decision, and I did think Hernandez won. But you shouldn't be going to a close fight with Austin Hubbard. Like, we just saw Rongju, like, beat up Hubbard for 3 rounds. Like, that's what you should be doing to Hubbard. And then Holloway, he got the 4 takedowns, got a kind of questionable decision here. I honestly thought that Holloway was going to take that. And then Holloway proceeded to get absolutely destroyed by Jordan Levin. So this was not a great win either. So like, I feel like the Chase Hooper win is biasing people, because they're like, oh, he just beat someone who was a minus 400 favorite against him and was supposed to go far in the division. I just don't think it means much about Hernandez. I think it means a lot about Hooper. So I'm going to say Ferreira by second round TKO due to ground and pound. I think he's just going to put the pressure on, continuously make Hernandez work, get past the danger points. Ferreira is not really chinnable either. He can take a fair amount of damage, so he should be able to get through any danger and then finish the fight. Hernandez is lightweight Costa, except instead of losing the Adesanya fight, he got project by Marvin Vettori or something fair. I don't see a first round knockout, and if it goes further, Ferreira grinds him like a true vet. Yeah, exactly. Not Kurt Holloway, man. Yeah. Ferreira by sub. Ferreira could get a sub. I think it's probably more likely to be a TKO. I think that Hernandez will probably not like give up his back in a way that will allow Ferreira to get the sub, because Hernandez doesn't really scramble like that. So I think that Hernandez will get tired, then Ferreira will take him down and then just like ground and pound from on top of him. Worries about the age at all? Yeah, definitely. If this was like ahead of 5 years ago or even 3 years ago, I'd be very confident in him. Now it's like, okay, you're at the point where if you take a shot, maybe you're not going to react as well as you used to. So I'm not going to say that he's a definitive lock here by any means. I think he should win based on the skill, but you never know with this age. Ferreira will pressure him, and maybe he can get the finish. Yeah, I'm even going to say round 2. But round 3 is very possible as well. Does that mean like Holloway versus Topuria at 155 or something else? I'm confused. Nothing that Hernandez can do will match what the Polish guy did. I can't remember his name. Martyrzan Beczki, yeah. I really need to figure out what is causing the delay here, because we're at like a 5-second delay, and I'm pretty sure I have the YouTube stuff set to have like pretty much no latency. Yeah, it's set to ultra low latency. I have no idea what. Okay, so this is a somewhat interesting fight. I have no idea why they still don't have the pictures here. We're 2 days before the events come up. Okay, so starting with Quang Li, since we've seen a bit more from him in the UFC. He is kind of a power puncher. He'll swing very big early. As the fight goes on, he definitely fades. His wrestling is okay. His grappling, in my opinion, is a little better than his wrestling itself. Like, he kind of had to wrestle a lot against Bolaños to get him down and get into position. But once he gets the back, he's pretty sticky there. I do believe he took a round off Gutierrez doing that as well. So he's like, in terms of finish, he's first round or bust. But after that, he could potentially win a decision if he could stall things out or not. But he is very finishable in round 3. We saw Long Xiao finish him in round 3 after like a pretty even round 1, just because of the fact that Quang Li faded so much. Dude is fighting a locked character ballot. So Santiago Luna, on the other hand, his base is wrestling. So in his early fights, you could very much see that. For context, Luna is very young. Let's see. I'm forgetting exactly how young he is. I think he's like 21, but let's see. 2004. Yeah, he's like 21-ish. So yeah, so Luna, all of his fights are like quote unquote recent, right? I think they started when he was like 18 or 17 or something like that. But especially in his early fights, you could see that he had a wrestling base and not much else, because he would just kind of back up on the feet and kind of wait for his opponent to make a mistake and then try to take him down. His wrestling is much better than his grappling. He has been in positions in which he's able to take people down like pretty much repetitively, but he just doesn't know how to properly use hooks and stuff like that and transition well while on the ground. So he's not able to like lock up a position where he is going to be able to do enough damage or finish his opponent. One thing he did seem to realize though is that when he's not able to finish opponent on the ground or take them down, he does have a lot of natural power on the feet. Even though he had absolutely atrocious technique early in his career on the feet, he would just throw stuff and drop opponents badly if pretty much anything landed. So as his career went on, we have seen a dramatic evolution in his striking, where it seems like his coaches realized that he does have like a natural striking affinity and kind of worked on making it legitimate. Now he throws like actual proper combos, he's okay in the pocket, and so on. This fight is interesting mainly because Luna is so untested. If this was Luna in like 3 years, yeah, he's going to walk through Quang Li. That's like the reality. But right now, I am leaning towards Luna, but I'm not ridiculously confident because it also depends on the game plan. Like, if his game plan is just negate Quang Li's wrestling and take the fight into the later rounds and then knock him out, that will do really well. But if he's like, oh, I'm just going to wrestle Quang Li, I don't know if that will work extremely well because Li has better BJJ. So even if Luna's able to take him down, Li's probably going to be able to get up repetitively or reverse position, and we don't really know how Luna's cardio is. So this is a tentative Luna pick. I do think he can get the knockout, especially in round 2 or so, but he has to come in with a decent game plan here, and hopefully he's also evolved since his last fight, which is very possible because we do see a lot of evolution fight to fight with him. I always hate breaking down Kelvin Gastelum because I never know how seriously he's taking his career, but he's technically has a wrestling base as well, but we all more so know him for throwing 1-2s repetitively. He has decent movement. He has the ability to throw kicks. He did rock Adesanya pretty badly with the head kick. His fight IQ is atrocious. After he rocked Adesanya, he decided to really wrestle for like 2 minutes straight and let Adesanya recover. So that is what it is. But his 1-2 is very powerful. Arguably, like, no, I'm not going to say the most powerful, but maybe in the division, like the most precise. He has a southpaw as well, which can mess with people in terms of like the 1-2 landing and so on. Stoltzfus, on the other hand, is more of a Muay Thai striker, which is very strange because, in my opinion, that doesn't go well with wrestling. So Stoltzfus goes in between the striking and wrestling. But when you have the Muay Thai style with like the narrower stance, it's very hard to shoot a takedown from. So I'm not sure what incentivized like Muay Thai striking base after having a wrestling focus, but that is what it is. Stoltzfus has improved a lot over time. At the beginning of his career, people just did not have the highest opinion of him, and he did not have the best results, to be fair. But as his career went along, he seemingly got more durable. He definitely showed off his power a bit more. He was more comfortable in the pocket, and he had a decent performance against Rizaboyev. If I remember correctly, Rizaboyev was cheating a lot in that fight, so having a close decision loss to him is not the worst thing in the world. The biggest problem for Stoltzfus here is the last time we saw him fight a southpaw, which was Soriano. He was getting caught by the 1-2 a lot. he just seemingly could not adjust to it. And even though he went on to eventually win the fight, if that was a more accurate boxer and just better southpaw in general, like Gastelum, I think they probably would have put him out. Especially because I don't think he's going to be able to transition to the wrestling well here. Like, people are saying, like, oh, Brady just took down Gastelum repetitively. Stoltzfus can do the same. If Stoltzfus had, like, a boxing style and then he was going to use that to open up the wrestling, I would more so agree. I don't think he has the wrestling, like, pedigree to really be able to just take down Gastelum out of nothing with no setup. Gastelum's takedown defense on paper isn't great, but it's also because of people like Brady. So I'm going to say Gastelum probably wins this by second round TKO, but given like his constant weight issues, the fact that he just didn't even seem to try to finish the fight against Pyfer and so many other factors, you can never be confident in Kelvin in my. Kelvin looks like Daniel Cormier, yeah, pretty much. How bad is Joe Pyfer? I mean, Pyfer, I think Kelvin was a weird matchup for Pyfer because Pyfer tried to actually kill him and then just, when it didn't work, kind of gassed out. Kelvin is immortal, it seems like. Even though you can drop him, you just can never finish him. I want to see Pyfer versus Nickel. That would be interesting, yeah. In all my life, I've never seen a sentient fridge with limbs. This baffles me. Valid. Kelvin looked like he swallowed a PS5 there. At his best, what is Kelvin's ceiling in the middleweight division? I think he could definitely be top 10 in the current middleweight division. I don't think he would approach a belt like he was in like Adesanya's championship time, because I think that was a very weak time in the middleweight division, in all honesty. But yeah, I mean, I do think Kelvin can and kind of should be top 10 at middleweight. Gastelum got that cockroach survivability. Valid. Why do you think Kelvin is that, never making weight and such? It's just a discipline issue. He released the whole like taco video before he missed weight, if I remember correctly. So yeah, he just doesn't control his diet. I don't know what it is. What's your opinion on Pyfer and his skill set? I mean, Pyfer is relatively solid in the sense that his striking is fundamentally sound. His wrestling is fundamentally sound. I think the problem is more so that he assumes a fight is going to go a certain way, and if it doesn't go that way, like if he gets behind, he doesn't really have the ability to come back because he's so reliant on like, oh, I'm going to steamroll this guy. Did Joe gas himself out? I don't recall that. I remember him fighting super tentatively after setting up a few good shots in round one. I think he did when he just started throwing everything into every shot against Kelvin. I haven't watched that fight in a while, but I remember like when he was landing like the head kick and stuff like that dropped Kelvin in round one. I think he put everything into those strikes. So even though his volume wasn't absolutely ridiculous, it was just like, oh, too much power into enough strikes that it started slowing him down. Too many tacos, yeah, exactly. I'm amazing, avocado, crazy. Pyfer gives up after he can't finish his opponent and starts cruising. Yeah, that's valid. Oh, I hate to go knock on Joe Pyfer's door and try to politely give him that advice. Fair. With Pyfer, I think that if he focused a bit more on the setups without worrying about the knockout, he would probably do better. Like, he does, I do think he has a solid calf kick, though. I'm blanking on his tape because I haven't watched it in a moment. I think he has a solid calf kick. So it's like stuff like that, where if you focus on the fundamentals a little more first, before just bombing away, you could probably finish them. I think Pyfer has a top 10 skill set, but just doesn't have the mentality right now. Yeah, very possible. He seemed more mature in his last fight, but who knows? We'll have to see what happens. Interested in this breakdown? Yeah, we'll see this. Okay, so this is a strange fight. Because Gordon's really old. 37 at lightweight is not good, especially if you've never been like a really top fighter. But anyways, so Gordon is a high-pressure fighter. He mainly weaponizes his lead hand, interestingly. Early in the fight, he throws a lot of lead hooks. He usually turns it into a jab a bit later into the fight. His cross is fine, but it's just not what he's really looking to land. He will, with his like newer style, kind of just walk forwards 24/7 and try to overwhelm you. He will shoot takedowns to mix things up as well. He is basically just trying to use his cardio base to break you over the extent of the fight. Very good performance against Moises recently. Even though I had him winning, I did not expect him to knock Moises out. So that definitely could be progress. On the other hand, Rafa Garcia is one of those guys that it always feels like he should be better than he is, if that makes any sense. He has the skill set to be very good. Like, he lands a lot of overhands. He gets like, okay, well, let's actually go through his career progression. Earlier in his career, he was a bit more of a brawler. At a certain point, he kind of stopped that. I'm forgetting why. Maybe he got rocked or something badly and just decided he couldn't do that anymore. Then he turned into more of a chain wrestler, and then after that, he kind of like started balancing a bit more, where now he mainly strikes, but he mixes in the takedowns to change things up. The biggest issue is it feels like he just has pillow hands. Like, he'll land multiple overhands in a fight and just not get the biggest reaction from his opponent. His takedowns are okay. They're relatively solid, but on the ground, he's nothing really special and can't really like get control to get a finish or deal consistent damage. If we talk about like pure skill for skill technique wise, I almost do feel like Rafa Garcia is better here. The problem is Gordon is more dangerous and just uses his skill set to the max capability, while Garcia is more like just doing as much as he needs to. When he beat Puelles, it was controversial scorecards because of the fact that, like, I think one judge gave him round 2 when he probably did not win round 2. But that just happens with a lot of these fights at this point, in all honesty. This fight is strange to predict because sometime soon, Gordon's going to show up and not look like himself. Taken a fair amount of damage in his career, and there will be a shot that just knocks him out, and it's like, that's weird, but it's just going to be because of his age. On the other hand, Garcia may have that step-up performance soon, where all of a sudden he's using his skill set to its max capability, and he looks spectacular. Or he may just be one of those guys who's always like, you see him in the gym and you think he can be spectacular, and then you see him fight, and it's like, what are we doing here? I'm going to very mildly lean Gordon here, because he's more reliable in what he's going to do, and we know that he's going to fight to win and try to get a finish, even if it's not going to necessarily happen. I do think this is a very close and hard to predict fight, though, because especially with the age difference, I don't love it for predicting predicting an older fighter to win. So I'm going to say Gordon wins by decision, but I'm very low on that, just not confident at all. Do you think Imovov's power is overrated? No, I don't. I think he just doesn't necessarily always get the moment to land clean, but I think he has solid power. The judges hate Jared Gordon, probably going to get robbed again. It's very possible, especially because it's UFC Noche. So, like, if Garcia is landing the overhands, even if they're not doing that much damage, but the crowd is, like, losing their mind every time he lands something, well, you never know. Like, he could get a weird decision where it's like, oh, he landed overhand, so even though he didn't actually do that much damage, it looked like he was. I got Garcia, fair. Imvov's got power, but Kaya has a tungsten dome, fair. How to visualize fights before stepping into the cage. Like, as a fighter, or, like, in what situation? Do you think Bo should fight Aliskerov? I think the company is going to try to build Bo more, so I don't think it would make sense necessarily. I think that both Ikram and Bo probably need like a step down in competition right now as a fighter. I mean, you have to understand what your opponent is going to do if you want to visualize it well. Like, you can't just visualize it necessarily based on what your skill set is, because if you don't know how they're going to react, you can't like simulate the fight in your head. Bo gets melted in that. Very possible, but at the same time, Aliskerov is so chinny and has such terrible defense that I'm never confident in him winning. Okay, Rob Font versus David Martinez. So, Rob Font is a pressure boxer. He's basically just going to walk forwards constantly, try to keep a jab in your face, and then piece you up if you try to enter inside. Martinez is karate-style striker. He will stay on the outside, blast a lot of calf kicks. He will switch stances a lot, throw spinning hook kicks. He throws punches kind of like a karate striker. There has been a dramatic evolution in his game, though. In Contender Series, he was punching purely like a karate striker, which I really do not like, because that means all the punches come from with both hands from your hips, and they're extremely rigid, only come one at a time, and so on. In his first UFC fight, he made a lot of improvements. He did not look as rigid. He was actually throwing combinations, and just overall was significantly better. Font has an issue in which he is winning until he isn't a lot of the time. And that's mainly because even though he pressures a lot and looks very good on the front foot, something you'll notice is that whenever he is actually throwing on the front foot, his guard isn't disciplined. So he ends up being very open to counters as he's moving forwards, which is why he was winning in the first few rounds against Aldo and what's his name? Chito Vera. But then they started finding the timing, he got countered and dropped, and then he basically just lost all the rounds from there. This is an interesting fight because Font, to my knowledge, has never been knocked out. Martinez has mainly knockouts, and Martinez, unlike most of Font's opponents, is going to be very comfortable on the outside. Font throws a lot of people off by pressuring them, but Martinez is used to people trying to pressure him. He's just going to constantly circle, and he knows how to move in those situations. On the other hand, Martinez isn't quite there in the boxing yet, and with someone with the pressure of Font, I could see him getting melted here because he just doesn't really quite know how to deal with the volume and isn't able to put things together in combinations properly, even if he has made some improvements. In terms of predicting this, it is a weird one, but I am actually going to take the underdog in Martinez because I feel like Font is getting to that age in which having that weakness where he's getting countered when he comes in is going to cost him, especially against a power puncher like Martinez. Martinez is going to keep chopping the calf kick, and Font has not shown the best calf kick defense, to say the absolute least. So it's going to take a toll on Font, and then with him already making mistakes in terms of throwing on the front foot and Martinez being very confident moving on the outside and countering, I think that once Martinez has damaged the calf and Font is a little more sloppy with how he throws and the opening is even bigger, Martinez can connect with some big punch, probably rock Font, and then put him out with a head kick. I'm picking against Rob Font again. I just can't pick him. That's fair. I think Martinez is going to chin Font. Yeah, I think it's very possible. I think this is probably going to be the end of Rob Font, and it is definitely time, to say the least. Font is just extremely predictable and is more of just a hard test for an up-and-comer versus being a challenge for anyone for an actually dynamic fighter. Yeah, I get what you mean. I don't think Font will get knocked out. Maybe his durability will save him. He is weird in the sense that he's not you can drop him. It's just you can't really finish him. It's kind of like Cannonier in that sense. It's it isn't that hard to drop them. If you connect clean, you will drop them, but they just don't go out for some reason. I think that in Font's last fight against Matsumoto, the biggest problem for Matsumoto is that he's just very, very pillow-handed. So when Font was pressuring him, Matsumoto, first of all, is not the best at circling. He's okay, but his circling is not spectacular. So it's easier to pressure him in general. And then the other issue is when he's getting pressured, he's oh, what do I do now? Because I can't stop him from pressuring because I don't have the power to do it. So his only option was just to shoot a takedown, which he did okay with. But because he doesn't have a crazy top game in terms of finding a submission or controlling the ground and pound, it was just a repetitive cycle where it's oh, he would get pressured, eat some shots, shoot a takedown, maybe get the fight down for a few seconds, then Font would get up, and so on. Font is very good at recovering, yes. Alright, so I'm going to say Martinez, first round TKO, counter cross into head kick knockout. Raul Roses have beaten Font? Yeah, he would have subbed him in one. Because Font's takedown defense is not good. And even though, like, Roses has not looked amazing, he still has good enough BJJ to sub Font for sure. I'm going to mute, drink some water, and then we'll move on to the main event. Alright, here we go. So, Diego Lopes versus Jean Silva. Diego Lopes is one of those, let's say, educated brawlers. In his case, maybe semi-educated. I'm not going to say fully educated. Is the lock tattoo new? I don't think I've noticed that before. Anyways. So Diego Lopes is basically going to run forwards. Something interesting about Lopes I noticed is that he does actually like to counter a lot more than people think. When he will move forwards, but then he'll kind of wait for his opponent to throw, and then he'll try to slip it and then throw in return. So when his opponent throws a cross, I talked about in the Instagram reel, but for anyone who didn't see that yet, basically what happens is if his opponent throws a cross, he will slip under it and then throw an overhand and then a left hook. If his opponent throws an overhand, he'll slip under it and throw an uppercut and then left hook. So it's always slip under and then throw right hand, whether it's an overhand or an uppercut, and then finish with a left hook. It is very predictable. On the front foot, he's kind of just going to throw jab overhands. He doesn't really throw across at all. I don't know why, but that is what it is. Maybe he's like trying to throw across. It's like when he throws his right hand, it kind of arcs no matter what he does. It's not as clean as you would like for like a boxing heavy fighter. On the ground, he is extremely dangerous. The biggest problem for him is he just doesn't have the ability to get the fight there. His wrestling is pretty terrible. In the pocket, he's going to blast uppercuts. If he can grab the collar tie and just like unload like whatever he can there, he will. And basically, he's very power and he's just going to throw, basically. Like, there's no better explanation. He's just going to throw stuff until he can knock you out. The problem we saw in the Volkanovski fight is that his footwork is absolute trash. Like, he was just following Volkanovski. He wasn't cutting him off at all. He was not adapting to Volkanovski's footwork in the slightest. He said in a post recently, like, oh, we kept trying to adjust, and then Volkanovski would just adjust to what we were doing. I have no idea what he was talking about, because I did not see a single adjustment from Lopes over the entire 5 rounds that he fought him. He also did not have the fight IQ to switch to the calf kicks more, and he just did not try to head him off and push Volkanovski back to the fence. It was a very big, like, exposure moment where it was like, okay, Lopes has zero adaptability and is nowhere near as good as most people thought, including myself. I definitely overrated him going into that fight. Jean Silva, on the other hand, is the epitome of fight IQ, right? He's going to make reads pretty much regardless of what you do. He will do it pretty much immediately and then punish right after. Right after Jourdain basically showed his head kick setup, Silva tried to lunge in and counter it. Jourdain was very fast, so he was able to move out of the way, but it only took him seeing it once to try to finish the fight that way. After Jean Silva saw the blitz sequence from Jourdain once, second time he switched so he was able to slip under, counter with the lead hook, and then get the knockdown. So, if you show Jean Silva pretty much everything, you know the next time you do it, he's going to try to counter it properly. He is very playful in his mentality, and that affects how he fights. So, he's very comfortable just letting the fight go wherever. He doesn't really have a preferred flow of the fight. This is very different for most fighters because, like, whether you're a counter striker like, say, Martinez, or you're a pressure fighter like Font, right? Like, everyone has a place where they want to be. Silva does not care where he is. Like, if he's on the back foot, he's perfectly happy trying to walk you onto strikes. If he's on the front foot, he's very happy trying to set up the 3-2. So wherever you are, there is danger everywhere. If you shoot the takedowns on him, he has very good hips now. Against Mitchell, I feel like people are forgetting this, but there was a point in the fight where he literally just lifted his hands and just was like looking around while just stuffing the takedown with only his hips. So his balance is spectacular. He's evolved a lot. He obviously has the guillotine defense against the takedown as well. So Lopes, who doesn't have as good takedowns as, say, Mitchell, probably is not going to be able to get this fight to the ground, in my opinion. If he does manage to get it down, he is dangerous, but I'm sure Jean Silva is going to have drilled get-ups many, many times in this fight because, I mean, he's very meticulous in his preparation, so I don't think he's going to be able to really do too much there. On the feet, John can probably counter Lopes's right hand very easily, because Lopes drops his right hand very badly every single time he throws it. I don't know how his coaches have let him get away with such a terrible tendency, but like every time he throws his right hand, it goes down lower than his hip and then comes back. So that it leaves a massive opening for Jean Silva's lead hook. The only problem for Jean Silva in this fight is that sometimes he struggles a little bit with those fighters who like to counter-strike and use head movement to do so. So in the Vallejos fight, we saw it take John a little bit of time to get his reads and then start to punish. Well, I say a little bit more time, a little bit of time, meaning more time than usual. It kind of took until round 2 until John was able to really start like going for things. When someone is using that slip-heavy strategy, John will start using the lead elbow instead of the punches and kind of like aiming where that they're going to slip. So with a vertical lead elbow, if Lopes slips down, it will still catch him extremely clean because he's basically going to move into it. So I think that we're going to see that from John in this fight. Basically, instead of opening with punches like he normally would and looking for like the 3-2, I think we may see him lead with a lot of vertical elbows and then start switching to punches later after like Lopes gets thrown off out of like his regular ducking. I'm pretty confident in Silva here. The reason why I'm a little bit nervous is because everyone that I plays heavily, it ages well, but it seems to age well after they lose once. Like with Tatsuro Taira, for example, right? He then lost the close fight to Royval, and then he looked significantly improved against Park, and now everyone's like, okay, yeah, he could be a champion. Even with, say, BSD, right? Like, he needed the 2 losses before he started fighting a lot, like, significantly more intelligently in his fight against Rufi. So, all these fighters that I'm very confident in do well long-term. It's just, for some reason, mess things up short-term. I don't think it's going to be the case here, because I just don't see a place in which John could really lose this fight, unless, like, he does something really strange, and I think his game planning is too meticulous to do anything that strange. But we'll see what happens. I'm going to say John wins by second round TKO. I think that he's going to use the vertical elbows to start busting up Lopes in round 1. I think we're going to see a lot of blood later in round 1. Then I think in round 2, Lopes is going to get a bit more desperate and start lunging forwards a bit more, and John will probably find the left hook, drop him, and finish. Let's see. Glaze and bounds, yes. Definitely not fully educated. Yes, agreed. Jean Silva, round 2-3 TKO. Yeah, I agree. Lopes is very dangerous. If he was better in some technical areas, he'd be one of the best. Yeah, I mean, his power is ridiculous. So I think one misconception about this fight, actually, is I don't think that John has as much power as people think he does. I think he's just extremely precise. Like, in the fight against Dober, like, yes, he did break his hands. That, of course, did contribute to some degree. Although I think that blaming broken hands is always a bit of a played-out excuse, honestly. But yeah, we saw with Dober, he was countering him cleanly, repetitively, and just wasn't hurting him that badly. And it's because with someone who has the chin like Dober, it's just you need a certain level of power to put him out clean. It's something that like Torres has or Frivola has, where they have that one-punch knockout power. John has a different level of precision, but I do think he has the less power in this fight. I don't think it will matter. I think that if he catches Lopes clean on the chin, he's going to put him down, and that will be that. But I do think that Jean Silva is, technically speaking, at a power disadvantage. Lopes should have tried to use body and head kicks in that fight. He should have tried a lot of things, but yeah. Lopes has 1 speed, yes. Got here mad early, fair. Good to see you here. Do you worry about Silva ducking into an uppercut? Not really. Silva is not someone who really like ducks a lot, so I don't think that's going to be a problem. Who has the better tats? I'd say it's pretty equal. I don't love or hate either of them. If Diego gets KO TKO, do you think he's gonna ever see the belt or bounce back? I don't think that Diego will ever see the belt, even if he were to win this somehow. In all honesty, I just don't think his skill set is advanced enough unless he made ridiculously dramatic leaps off of that the loss to Volkanovski. So yeah, especially if he gets knocked out, I don't think we're going to see him at the top of the division or even close anymore. Kevin Playos is a better boxer than Lopes, though he is, yes. Lopes triangle after getting dropped, it was revealed to be an training fair. Bad first round against Vallejos isn't a good sign against insane first round boxing finisher as well. To some extent, I agree. I do think that Vallejos is a little bit less predictable than Lopes, and the other issue is that there's a lot less tape on Vallejos going into that fight. That's something I just kind of realized in my head, is that partly contributed because I don't think John was able to really make any reads on Vallejos previously to that fight, which might be why it took him longer to understand how to fight against him, while with Lopes we do have a lot of tape. So that actually could have been a contributing factor. Hello, Oracle, do you also train MMA? Yes. Anyway, John, KO round 3, yes. I think the second Lopes opens with a hook, Silva's going to counter with a straight down the pipe and TKO. Very possible. Silva in the cage is like a fish in the water. I've never seen a fighter so comfortable. He's enjoying it like he's playing a video game. Valid. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know if Silva has a style that's built to win decisions since he really relies on big shots, big moments. The visual. Not sure if he can outpoint someone. I somewhat agree. I just don't think it matters because I don't think anyone's really going 25 minutes at Silva. And even if they do, in all honesty, the big moments tend to win the rounds. So I think he's fighting, like even against Mitchell, he didn't do anything for like 80% of round 1 and then won the round in like the last minute. Like he got the round on all 3 judges' scorecards, I believe. And he basically just did it by deciding to do something in the last minute. So he could potentially do that over 5 rounds if he needed to. Silva definitely can be caught too, flat-footed on an exit or overextending, get caught with no guard. His boxing is very predictable as well. While he's faster, he might get caught taking pick. I don't necessarily agree with that because his movement is significantly better. If your footwork is good enough, you don't really necessarily need to be guarding to prevent getting caught. I wouldn't say he's necessarily flat-footed because he controls his exits pretty well. Like, if he doesn't land, he is, like, controlling how he ducks out to the side and such. Lopes cardio underrated. Yeah, his cardio is fine. And now for my 13th reason why my boy Diego getting iced there. Yeah, tape point matter a lot, I think. Yeah, exactly. Lopes, unlike Vallejos, isn't necessarily a pressure boxer, though. Lately, he's been turning into a counter fighter that is hittable and counters with 2 to 3 shot combos, very similar to Luque. I wouldn't say Vallejos is necessarily a pressure boxer, though, either at his core, because he does really like to slip and counter. I would say that is his main game. Gone by round 1 TKO. Very possible. I think it's going to be round 2. I think we'll see like a little bit of an adjustment period, but I wouldn't be surprised with late round 1 either. I like Silva's manipulative style. He's okay. How do you think Movsar catches up with Silva? Sorry, matches up, not catches up. I think that Movsar gets killed because he's very vulnerable to the left hook. People have just blitzed him and landed, and Movsar has no way of finishing the fight, and over 25 minutes with Silva, you're going to get caught and finished. Silva versus Arnold Allen, who wins? Silva. If Lopes wins, how do you think he does it? Lopes, I mean, there's 2 ways. Either he just blitzes and lands something absolutely wild in like a 10% chance, or he somehow gets the fight to the ground, maybe like pulling guard or something weird and is able to lock up something there. Silva might be too comfortable fighting smaller guys. He's fought a lot of bantamweights, and although Dober's a lightweight, he's no better than Vittori to me. I mean, Silva has sent 2 guys to bantamweight, which is kind of funny, but also the other thing is both of those guys are bigger than him. So I'm not quite sure about the smaller guys thing. I think he's just like outclass guys so badly he traumatized them into going down a weight class, but at the same time, like, they were bigger than him. Silva only defensive flaw that worries me is when he leans back with his chin up in the air. Fair. He tends to do it in a way, though, that's not really going to get him caught because his legs are still in front of him. But I get what you mean. Do you think John can sub him? I think it's very unlikely. I'm not gonna, like, maybe say that he rocks Lopes badly and then Lopes shoots, maybe he pulls a guillotine and sleeps him. That, like, would be the one situation, in my opinion. But I think a TKO is a lot more likely. Lopes gets slimed here is my least favorite fighter for talking fair. Silva has much better footwork, movement, understanding of angles and openings compared to Lopes, much trickier and more thoughtful, but he isn't great on the lead and he doesn't have reliable leads. What do you mean by that? Like, in terms of on the front foot? Silva with the tomahawk elbow, dudes always try it in fights. Possible. Is Lopes via wrestling possible? Very unlikely, because Lopes doesn't really have that level of wrestling. Like, I've never seen him chain wrestle, and I've never, like, I'm not going to say never, but I've rarely seen him get a takedown in general. In some sparring footage he posted, John had partners imitating Diego's neck-touching take. Is that unrealistic to target? No, not unrealistic at all. Whenever your opponent has something predictable, always target, in my opinion. It definitely makes sense. Diego's just too trigger-happy in the one range, and even then his shot selection is so bare and predictable. Yeah, agreed. Silva's main issue defensively is that he doesn't mind his position in the octagon at times and waits a bit too much. Dober is having success with Silva against the cage when staying more patient. I wouldn't say he doesn't mind his position in the octagon. I think that he's very aware of it. I just think that he is very comfortable with it. And I wouldn't say the waiting is necessarily a bad thing. That's just his style because he's waiting for an opportunity to put you out. Like, he's not a volume striker. He can turn into one if he needs to be. Like, round 3 against Vallejos, I think he started turning up the volume. But in general, he's looking for an opportunity to put you out. How do you think Murphy versus Volk fight goes? Volk probably wins a wrestling-heavy decision. What makes Silva so good in your opinion? Like, top 3 things about his style. It's just his reads. Like, when you can punish tendencies that quickly and so precisely, that it's unreal compared to every other fighter we've seen. On paper, Silva wins, but I think Lopes can overwhelm him. It'd be surprising to me. Maybe we'll see it. Waiting will backfire eventually. I mean, if he was still fighting 3-round fights, I'd agree with you. But now that he's probably going to be fighting 5-round fights, I don't think it can. If Silva wins, give him Zalal. I'm trying to see something spectacular. Do you think Imvov cheating is accidental or is it on purpose? I think that with the Savate fighters in general, they're taught to extend their fingers. So it's a problem of, like, stylistically, it's just happens, and it's very bad and points should be taken, and to be clear, but I do think it is accidental. I don't think it's like John Jones and how he, like, purposely does that. Zalva runs a marathon, yes. If you were Silva, do you think a trip to Turkey for a hairline reconstruction could help in prep for the Volk fight? Volk's only lost to people with hairlines. I think it could play a big factor. That would be funny. I meant it as in Silva doesn't have any reliable techniques good at creating openings, poking, and scoring, or at least not in any particular one that he has shown reliably going to, but he's a monster. I wouldn't say that he doesn't have reliable techniques in terms of creating openings, because he'll do it with his basic techniques. Like, he'll do it with a 3-2, and then he'll use his feints to open up the 3-2, and so on. So I would say he creates his openings with his basic techniques. Like, you don't necessarily need, like, just a standard jab or a calf kick or something to create the openings if you could do it with your other stuff. I get what you're saying, but how impressive is it that he's reading Mitchell and Dober? It's not about who the competition is. It's about making reads that no one else ever has. Even if we look at Ilya's fight with Mitchell, it was very different in that, like, Ilya was just going for stuff. He was just swinging, right? And it worked out, first of all, because Ilya's footwork is good, and second of all, because he's just solid in general. But the precision for which Silva, like, deconstructs his opponents and is able to just destroy them based on a single tendency is something that is just unstoppable. Silva does just break people in there like Jordan Mitchell looked done after the first. Yeah, exactly. Imavov is a serial cheater. Yeah, kind of, yeah. Nice stream, good work, thank you. How did you score the Kyle and Imavov fight? I had it 49-46. But I do think there should have probably been a point for the eye poke, so it probably should have been 48-46. I really like Imavov, but he's literally eye poked all his opponents at this point. To me, it's cheating. Fair. What do you think of odds for this fight? I honestly think Silva should be... Oh, I just realized these odds are messed up. It's the opposite. Whatever the case. I think Silva should probably be around -4 to 500. Main thing I like about John is that he's... I assume you're saying that his distance management positioning is very good. Fair. What do you think about the Kirk situation and his haters? Maybe we'll talk about it at the end of stream, not in the middle of fight analysis. I feel like John is very open to leg kicks, but it's pretty hard to do something about it for these. I think that in this fight, where he's expecting Lopes to throw calf kicks, he will have addressed it better. But we'll see. Who wins, Ilya that fought Mitchell or Silva that fought Mitchell? I would say Silva that fought Mitchell is a lot more developed. I would say Ilya now is very different than Ilya then. Every time with a different counter, and it's insane valid. Ilya versus John, future predictions. It really depends when the fight happens. Like, and how they've evolved to that point. Because they both keep changing fight to fight. So it's really hard to predict. Like if it were to happen now, I would say it's a near 50-50. But who knows when it would, like, what it would be like by the time it would happen. -400 is crazy. Honestly, I think it's generous because I feel like there's like probably a 90%-ish chance that Silva wins here. Because for Lopes to win, it has to be like a Hail Mary fluke, in my opinion. Like he just has to land something so random or lock up such a random sub. Like I can't see him winning any minutes here. Most fighters have a couple of standard counters and try to walk their opponents into them by using feints and setups and footwork, while Silva has insane variety of catalog. Yeah. I think Ilya got that. Now that he's fat, he's going to hit way harder. It's not necessarily about the power, to me at least. It's more so about, okay, what is superior, Ilya's footwork or John's setups and counters? What would you suggest Lopes should do to beat John? I honestly don't know, because he's so behind in his skill set. Like, I would say that maybe try to blitz early, because if you like kind of overwhelm John's reads and try to punish him before he gets his reads, maybe have a chance. So maybe he should just blitz super early and just like throw crazy in the pocket. And then if John survives that, just use that to try to open up the wrestling. And then if that doesn't work, maybe try to pull guard at that point, because you're not going to want to be on the feet with John like going into round 2. How would Holloway do against Silva if he was still at 145? I think Silva probably has a damage-heavy decision win where he like drops Holloway a few times. Josh or Zalal, I think Josh might wrestle him. I'm gonna probably lean Zalal. I think Josh is too old in general, and I think that Zalal is probably going to just punish Josh's overextensions to get to the back. Might even sub him. Don't throw your cross downwards. Yeah, I agree with that. Lopes just needs to embrace Paul Craig's strategy and try to fluke a triangle. Yeah, honestly, maybe. That's a very risky and not reliable suggestion. Yeah, I agree. There are no good suggestions. Diego is the most dangerous opponents faced. You have to give more of a chance than anyone Silva faced before, especially considering the level difference. I mean, I was saying there was a 99% chance that he beat Mitchell. So this is a massive upgrade in chance for what I'm giving Lopes. And Lopes is the most dangerous he's faced. I just think there's way too dramatic a skill difference. Do you think Max Holloway could beat Ilya at 55? I honestly do not. I think that Ilya is progressing too much and Holloway's kind of at his peak. Actually, Ilya always lowers his hand when he's throwing big shots for some reason. Yeah, Ilya has a lot of like base tendencies that someone like Silva could punish. In my opinion, power is overrated as an idea in general, but like Lopes might genuinely hit harder than Silva and Ilya, but he's way less dangerous as a striker because he's still unpredictable. Yeah, I agree. What's the method to the madness behind Silva's barks? Uh, I think that Silva channels emotion a lot, and he's one of the few fighters who's very good at being emotional. I think it has to do with that. Holloway versus Arman. I think Holloway could beat Arman because Holloway's scrambling and takedown defense has always been spectacular, and Arman has nothing on the feet. Jean is crafty, meticulous with his weapons. I think he's going to shock Lopes with some technical wild stuff. Yeah, very possible. He's always calling out Emmett, literally watching the Murphy fight, knowing he's going to mimic that game plan. Fair. He toyed with Bryce, genuinely so unserious. Yeah, exactly. He knew he was going to destroy Bryce. Like, he did not care at all. Bulked up Ilya versus JDM. I slightly lean Ilya, but it's a close one. Prime Connor or Ilya. I think Connor might snipe him. Yeah, I take Prime Connor because Ilya's like openings when he throws the overhand are like kind of tailor-made for Connor to counter. Silva versus Prime Volk. Tougher one. I think over 5 rounds though, Silva still wins. He lands something eventually, is able to put out. I think over 3 rounds, it's probably a Volk win. Who hits harder, John or Ilya? Ilya. Silva barks because his deceased brother got him a dog, so he doesn't honor his brother. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm talking about in terms of emotion. I think he very much channels his emotions in everything he does. Is Amir as Hooker one of the worst matchups for Arman in top 10? I don't think so because Hooker's takedown defense just isn't quite there. Hooker may be able to land the knee though. It's definitely possible, but I would say someone with like better takedown defense would be his worst matchup. Silva versus featherweight Holloway. I'd lean Silva. Lopes versus Yair is the best grudge match right now. Yeah, I agree with that. Yair mauls Jean Silva. I don't think so, but I would like to see the fight. What do you think about Font versus Martinez? Can we get a Rob Font masterclass? Oh, okay, so for those of you who kind of just got here or whatever, I will review my picks. Okay, so starting here, I'm taking Donchenko by second round TKO. Alice Pereira by decision. Costa by second round TKO. Reese by first round TKO. Aguilar by first round submission guillotine. Suarez by first round submission guillotine. Puelles by decision. Todorovic by decision. Ferreira by second round TKO. Luna by, say, second round TKO. Maybe third rounds, but I'll say second round for now. Gastelum by second round TKO. Gordon by decision. Martinez by first round TKO. And, of course, Silva by second round TKO. How do you think John does against a Prime Volk and Weird on John versus GSP pound for pound? I'm confused what the second question is, but for the first one, I would say over 5 rounds, John wins. Oh, did I answer that already? Yeah, but if I did not answer it, over 5 rounds, I think John wins. Over 3 rounds, I think Volk wins. Is Max the second best lightweight at the moment? No, I don't think so. Do you think JDM can take advantage of Islam's long guard with his trademark body shot? I think he's more so going to take advantage of the fact that Islam always counters with the lead hook and is very predictable in terms of his movement after that. Connor's underrated right now due to his current shenanigans. Yeah, agreed. Look at his username. Yes, I know. Looking back, Imavov is dangerous, but he does wait a lot, and his head movement is mostly on reaction to counters. I think DDP switching stances being awkward in his timing will be a problem. It's very possible. It's a very 50-50 fight, in my opinion. Dan's takedown defense against Gamrot looked very good. He was able to threaten the guillotine against Gamrot, but Gamrot's style of takedowns and Arman's are very different, and that Gamrot's gives you a little bit more time to react, while Arman's are like kind of more blast, quicker takedowns. Odds on Fajeda are crazy, I agree. I think he meant pound for pound who wins John or GSP. That's a tough one. I actually don't know. I'm gonna have 2 TVs in different rooms for the Canelo fight in this card. I don't know how it's gonna work. Fair. Not a Font KO loss, come on, you're making me sad. By the way, Font is like the chiniest bantamweight other than Cody, but never got KO'd before. Yeah, his recovery is really good, but I think it's gonna come to an end. What do you think is currently the second best lightweight? Let's look at the rankings. if we say Islam is out because he's going to welterweight, so I'm not going to consider him. I think it honestly might still be Oliveira. We're the top 3 lightweights at the moment, in your opinion. Yeah, I'm going to say Islam, Arman, and Oliveira. Yeah, a weird, interesting matchup that I want to see is Grant Dawson versus Arman. Like, I feel like Grant Dawson could pull off a weird win against Arman. Breakdown Canelo versus Crawford. I mean, again, I don't watch boxing enough to give an accurate breakdown there, but I think the Canelo's speed may make the difference. Okay, before I go on to more questions here, and I'll answer some more. But again, I do have to promote my betting stuff because, oh god, mind is blanking. We did extremely well last week in terms of bets. We got Hughes versus Bannon under 2.5 rounds based on one of the algorithm's outputs. Obviously, I got the BSD picks, BSD submission, BSD round 2 submission, all of that. So with the betting service, we're doing extremely well. We have 4 different algorithms actually. I'm working on a new algorithm as well. If you join the betting service, you get my predictions as well. You get my bets. You get all the algorithms there, all the tools, and so on. The base algorithm is up 150 units on the year. If you parlay stuff and so on, you may be up more depending on your own reads, how you do it. We, of course, hit like the plus 30,000 around a month ago, and we're looking to hit another one as soon as possible. So if you want to join the betting service, if you are betting, any sizable amount of money, it is probably worth it because we do great there and it is just more information. Link is in the description of this stream. Also, feel free to DM me on Instagram if you have any questions about it or ask here. Okay. What attributes would make you pick Volk in a 3-rounder versus Silva? Give me a second, gonna drink more water. And I'll answer. So I think that Volk may be able to just have an elusive game plan where he's able to take the first 2 rounds before Silva's able to get enough reads, and then he'll probably drop the 3rd round when he could probably survive just through a lot of like wrestling and moving around and stuff like that. So he could probably take a 29-28 decision if it was prime Volk in a 3-round fight. Over a 5-round fight, I think John would get his reads and probably finish the fight in like round 4 or so. And that's against prime Volk. Against Volk now, I don't think it would be at all competitive. And does Kyle rebound from this loss? He looked very powerless and lacked a good game plan. I just don't think he's as talented as the rest of the top middleweight. I don't think he's as talented as well, but he also didn't do terribly. Like, I think that losing to Imavov is not a terrible thing, and he didn't get knocked out like Adesanya did. It was a semi-competitive fight. I thought that, it was a very clear win from Imavov, but Kyle had a few moments. So I think that if he's able to tighten up a few things, fight on the back foot better, pressure a bit better, maybe introduce some chain wrestling instead of just the single shots and so on, maybe link his wrestling with his grappling a little bit better. There's things he can do to improve. I genuinely hate that Show Money Medina is still in the promotion. Valid. I agree with that. How Oliveira Arman bite him. What does that mean? Arman chins Dawson. It's possible, but Dawson's striking definitely has gotten better, and he seems to understand now that he can't just exchange in the pocket. What I really want to see is the grappling sequences in that fight. If Arman just chinned him on the feet, well, that would be boring, but it's definitely possible. But if we saw the grappling sequences, that would be fun. Do you think Oliveira beat Arman? Yeah. When we watched it live, I thought that it was very close. and I wasn't really sure who won. But then when I rewatched it, I realized like Oliveira did a lot better in the striking in round 3 than I remembered, and then especially with the submission attempt in the round, he actually pretty clearly won round 3. I get why the judges were potentially getting it wrong, because in the moment I thought it was close also, but yeah, Oliveira definitely beat Arman. Hughes or Usman? I'm going to take Hughes just because I think he has a higher ceiling, but it's a tough fight. Fight that I want to see the most style-wise at lightweight is Holloway versus Arman. That's such an interesting matchup for me, and in my opinion, Holloway might win a decision. Yeah, that's valid. Make a fighter / game plan to beat Silva. That's tough. That's very tough. Maybe we'll do a full stream dedicated to that at some point. Starts work 1 week from now. How for the? I'm not sure what you're saying, a cube. I'm not sure what you're asking, rather. How is Ilya so good even with his defensive flaws? Well, the problem is that most people get too scared to punish his defensive flaws because they're afraid of getting caught and put out, which to be fair, is a valid fear. So a lot of people fight him scared because of that and don't really go after him. In my opinion, to beat Ilya, you have to come with the game plan of I'm going to knock him out. You have to like acknowledge the fact that there's a risk you're going to get caught, and you just have to go after him. Honestly, the way Moicano just mauled BSD on the ground in the first was insane. I think like it wasn't like a fluke, but I also think that BSD not having coaches in that fight really played a large role. Jean Silva versus Islam and Khabib at lightweight. I think he beats Islam fairly easily, but Khabib, it might be a different story. Oracle, what's your MMA style? I'm a karate stylist, I guess you would say, but I incorporate a lot more boxing than like a traditional karate style. Is Hamzat going to retire undefeated? Seems likely. It is possible at this point for sure. It really depends like how many more times he fights and at what weight classes. Featherweight is in a weird transitional moment. The champ doesn't feel like he deserves the belt. There are no real deserving contenders and the top guys aren't active. No one deserves a title shot. Yeah, it is in a weird moment. I agree with that. Why do I see when Volk and John fight, John's going to counter him bad and bark over Volk's unconscious body? If they fight now, that will happen, yeah. Canelo versus Ilya boxing. I mean, if they fight in boxing, Canelo's going to win. Would you still pick Kaio over RDR by KO? I don't see Kaio having the power or the strength really to stop the pressure. He has the footwork, but I can see Kaio wear down and lose the speed early. Yeah, no, I would still pick Kaio to knock out RDR because his straight shots are just good enough and RDO just has no defense against straight shots. Most anticipated title fight. Right now, probably Islam JDM. Arman might just be the most overrated fighter on the roster. People act like he dominated Charles and he's this unstoppable wrestler. I wouldn't say he's the most overrated, but I get your point. Yeah, I do think he's a little bit overrated. Hot take, but I don't think Usman would break into the top 8 at UFC lightweight. I don't think that's a hot take. I mean, that's definitely true. There's a massive discrepancy between lightweight and welterweight. How much for your bet / algorithm? It's $25 a month. Reyes or Ankalaev? I'm leaning Reyes, even though it's a tough fight. What belt are you in BJJ? I do not have a BJJ belt. I do no-gi only, so I do not get belts. Lopes will show how to beat Silva. Doubtful, but maybe. Who wins? John Jones versus Hamzat, and then John Jones versus Magomed. I'd say Jones probably takes both as much as I dislike him. He beats Magomed because of the fact that Magomed always just plods forwards. He has no like intricate footwork, and Jones is just going to spam the oblique kick. Like, if you do not have lateral movement, Jones will just throw the oblique kick and do nothing else the entire fight. So Magomed's just going to get his legs chewed up, like even worse than against Jan. Against Hamzat, Jones can just survive early and then probably finish him later because he has much more intricate wrestling defense than, say, Drakus. I feel like Volk has lost his sharpness and snap he used to have, where he's more hesitant now. Fair? I mean, yeah, that happens after you get knocked out a few times. Who beats Marab? Right now, no one at Bantam, in all honesty. What are the odds Silva doesn't get a belt ever? Very low. maybe like 20%. Let's assume Alex beats Ankalaev and moves up. What do you think of a matchup between Pereira versus Tom and Pereira versus Gon? Gon should be an easy fight for Pereira, realistically. Is a tough one to call because it just depends on can he stuff the takedown. Like, when you have fights like that, you're just guessing based off of, like, some context. Do you think he can stuff the takedown or not? So if he can stuff the takedown, yeah, he's going to knock out Tom. If he can't, well, he's just going to get subbed. What do you think is Rufi's ceiling now at 29? I'm not sure he can make the improvements now. His striking just looks so bad and he was unable to adjust inside a fight. I think now that he lost the fight and knows he needs to make dramatic improvements, we'll see them. I think Rufi's ceiling is still like top 5. Have you competed in any jiu-jitsu competition? No, I don't. Grappling is secondary to me. It's just to round out the game and obviously know how to not get subbed in MMA. But no, I'm a striker. Usman from PFL. I'm in. Sorry for not clarifying. Oh, you're good. No, I agree with that as well. I don't think he'd be top 10. Gaziev is back on his title walk today. He was booked against Spivak. Do you think he wins? Yeah, I would actually lean towards him beating Spivak. I'm not confident though. Spivak is a tough test for anyone, but I would probably mildly lean towards Gaziev. Merab or Islam pound for pound, who wins? Probably Merab now. If this was pre-second O'Malley fight, I would have said Islam. But seeing how much Merab has adjusted, I think Merab wins. Begzov versus Topuria. I have Begzov by round 1 TKO. Honestly, I don't know. Because, Topuria, like, especially Alejandre, right? His game planning is extremely good. Begzov, on the other hand, is just more talented. So I don't know what's going to happen when we see, like, significantly higher talent versus significantly better game planning. It's going to be very interesting to see. Aspinall is going to KO Gon. He will counter Gon when he throws the lead leg kick. I don't think he's going to counter Gon off the leg kick. It is possible, but I don't think it's going to happen. I wouldn't be shocked if Aspinall KO'd Gon. That would be more entertaining than a sub. I just don't think it's going to happen. Would you favor BSD or Kamrat? Maybe controversial take, but I favor BSD there. I think he's just better well-rounded in general. And I think that Gamrot's going to struggle to consistently out-wrestle him. And Gamrot doesn't have, like, the damage on the ground even that Moicano does. So even if Gamrot gets him down, it's not going to, like take anything significant out of BSD. Usman Nurmagomedov versus Arman right now. Who do you think? It's Arman easily. Rebechki versus Slovakian guy. I'm confused what you mean. What is Oral by ceiling? I mean, if he keeps improving, he could be top 10, but he needs to show a lot more for me to think he could be top 5. Gamrot is so underrated, man. I agree, but I think people just wanted to hate BSD so much after the 2 losses that they severely underrated him. I think that he's still far better than people realize. JDM chins Islam. He doesn't have the durability and wishes he could headbutt punches like an old hands Bilal. It's definitely possible, yes. Does Gon have a chance against Tom? I mean, he has a chance, yes, but the biggest problem for Gon is that for a heavyweight, he has pillow hands. And the best way to beat Aspinall is to counter him in the pocket and knock him out. Because Aspinall's boxing kind of sucks, in all honesty. So if you can just, like, slip a shot and then land a lead hook, you could probably knock out Aspinall if you have decent boxing and power. But while Gon has decent boxing, he doesn't have power. So I'm pretty sure Aspinall could just eat the shot and keep going. So because of that, I don't think he really has a chance, yeah. What do you think of... Well, I shouldn't say he doesn't have a chance, but he doesn't have a high chance. What do you think of Robert Ushala? He overperformed a little bit compared to what I thought he would. His wrestling is definitely stronger than I expected, but his striking is really bad. And if you fight someone who, like, has more power than Gomez, they're just going to knock you out. Gamrot is, like, the best fighter ever. He's so cool, fair. I think Jack wins, but keep in mind Islam's chin was compromised badly by... Possible. Who would you have in Wellmaker versus Alessandro? Definitely Topuria. How do you feel about Axel Sola? Okay, so regarding Axel Sola, good question. Thank you for bringing that up, actually. Even though I picked him, I think I underrated him. He performed a lot better defensively than I expected, and he was just fundamentally more sound. Granted, Reese McKee is not the best fighter, to say the least, but I thought Axel Sola looked very good. Now, that being said, going down to 155, which is definitely stronger, I'm not positive how he'll do there. I actually would have rathered he stayed at 170, but he looked good, and I'm excited to see how he does. What about BSD versus Dariush? I was going to lean Dariush, but I can literally see both of them exchanging at mid-range in a brawl, and BSD just having the better chin and getting a TKO. Yeah, I think that as long as BSD doesn't decide that he's going to grapple Dariush for some reason, BSD wins. As long as he's like, oh, I'm just going to sprawl takedowns and just brawl, he should knock out Dariush. John or Aspinall pound for pound, who wins? Definitely John. Thank you for saying Aspinall boxing sucks. I've been saying that for so long. No problem. Exactly, man. Tom's stand-up is an ugly one, too. Yeah, exactly. Gamrot beats Topuria, KO Polish Power, Ultimate Plot Twist. Fair. Drunk BJ Penn versus John Jones. Drunk John Jones, pound for pound, who wins? Probably Drunk John Jones. People overrate Tom Strike, in my opinion. He's really chinnable and has some terrible habits. Throws hard kicks from too close. Reckless in the pocket. He isn't that great, in my opinion. Prime Stipe would beat him. Yeah, I agree with all of that. Who represents Muay Thai better, Fiziev or Protez? I would actually say Protez, I think. I think Protez is like almost pure Muay Thai in the good sense, while I feel like Fiziev is just very, very rigid and not really adaptable. I think Uncle Ive is going to flatline Alex in the rematch with a front kick. He's just going to set it up by a teep kick on Alex. I mean, maybe. I don't think Alex is really going to fall for a front kick to the face, but I could see Alex getting knocked out. I just feel like it would come from punches, not kicks. Aspinall used to box with Tyson Fury. His boxing doesn't suck. Boxing with, I mean, this is the whole thing. Training with someone good doesn't make you good. That's just like the reality of it, right? We've seen a lot of fighters like train with like John Jones or train with like Ilya Topuria or whatever, and they're terrible. So it doesn't. There's no like osmosis there. Someone is not just good because they train with someone good. Merab or Alessandro Topuria? I'd say Merab, but they're never gonna fight. Who do you think has the best wrestling in UFC? I mean, I would say Khabib pre-retirement. Now, let's see. Maybe Pantoja. I mean, maybe like Merab and Pantoja aren't bad picks. Yeah, I'd probably say Pantoja. Maybe Merab. What do you think is the most technical fighter on the UFC right now? Technical. I would say, maybe JDM, to be honest. We're talking about purely like doing something properly. I feel like JDM does that. Rata says KOs with every limb, unlike Physique. Valid. What's your striking background? Karate base. Karate and boxing base, let's say. What would you say is the biggest thing holding back Fiziev? He seems to have the talent, but fights too much in spurts, and his defense is just too weak in a dangerous division. Yeah, I mean, he's just too rigid in everything he does. Like, everything he does is proactive. There's nothing, like, relaxed and reactive. Like, he needs to focus on just, like, being looser, in my opinion. Dontel May is trained with John Jones plenty. Yeah, exactly. People like that. Bubakar trains with Khabib. Does that mean he's the KO? Yeah, exactly. I think Jean Silva's gonna knee Lopes when he dips for the KO. Possible. GSP had the best setups and shots for wrestling. Yeah. I mean, if we're talking about fighters all the time, yeah, maybe GSP, yeah. I think Topuria's brother loses his next fight. Does not look too good. It's possible. I didn't love how he looked in his debut, but, I mean, technically it was a dominant decision. Fiziev has that European Thai style fast twitch, while Protez is the lethal laid back Muay Thai. Valid. Sorry, I'm a bit late. What was your prediction for Font versus Martinez? Martinez first round TKO. People legit forgot the past generation of heavyweights. They had solid wrestling and solid boxing. Tom has blown away every opponent, but he hasn't shown that level of greatness. Yes, valid. Dominic Cruz's takedowns were art. I would say Dominic Cruz's style as a whole was art, but I wouldn't say it was like technically the best, if you get what I mean. But yeah, I have a lot of respect for Dominic Cruz. Who is the best looking fighter? Probably Rockhold. GSP or Khabib? I got GSP 50-45. I think GSP, but I think it would be like a 49-46 or maybe even 48-47. JDM or Morales? Right now, Morales. Cam Teague versus Anshul Jubilee. I'd probably take Anshul Jubilee, honestly. How would you see John versus Holloway at lightweight? I'd take John. I would take John probably to win a decision. Do you think Cain Velasquez could beat Tom Aspinall? I don't think Cain Velasquez would, because I don't think he got chinned by what's his name? Junior Dos Santos once, right? And I think there were some fundamental issues in his boxing that people just wanted to pretend didn't exist. But I think Stipe would. What do you think Morales beats Jack? I don't. I said JDM. Tom is a specimen with how fast and powerful he is. He beats all those bums from the past in under 2 minutes. I don't think he's technical enough to. I think Tom leaves way too many openings for counters, and Prime Stipe was way too good a boxer to not punish that. Oh, did I say it the wrong way? If someone asked me Morales versus JDM, I definitely meant to say JDM. I don't know if I said Morales. My bad. Sorry, I'm so out of it. You did? Okay, yeah, my bad. No, I definitely meant to say JDM there. I do not think Morales beats him. Prime DC versus Aspinall. Tough one. I'd probably say Aspinall, because DC would Honestly, I could see either of them winning that. I wouldn't be shocked either way. I'd probably very mildly lean Aspinall, but I definitely could see DC closing a distance and just piecing him up in the pocket. Tom's win over Volkov is one of the best staging wins ever. Fair? Morales versus Protez. Right now I'd probably say Protez, but not confidently. O'Malley versus a Song. I'm probably gonna say O'Malley, but I'm never confident picking against Song. Morales versus Protez will be a barn burner. Fair. What's Morales' ceiling, you think? We have to see how he develops. I think he'll definitely be top 5 for a while, but I don't know if he can ever be champion. We'll see. Is Tom just purely carried on athleticism, speed, and power in your opinion? Yeah, mostly. Aziv, in my opinion, is overrated. His striking is good, but not too functional. For example, he isn't a great low kicker, great at dealing with low kicks. He has a solid combos, but at times he lacks the basics. The kind of more simple leads, poking strikes, just like jabs, teeps, doesn't mechanically brilliant. Doesn't look mechanically brilliant, maybe, but it looks like he always throws everything into it. Yeah, I can agree with that. I do think Fazeev is a bit overrated. Balaji Oki annoys me. He's talented, but he fumbles so hard in fights. Yeah, this is the second fight now. The Balaji Oki really clearly should have won and decided he was just going to be stupid and lose. It's so annoying. Balaji Oki is my, the only prediction I'm annoyed about from last week, because I feel like I made the right prediction. Oki should win that. It's just, he is dumb. Middleweight, light heavyweight, and heavyweight are the least skilled divisions. Yeah, of course. Every fighter that loses to Topuria won their next fights. True. Morales looked 2 weight classes above Burns when they fought. Yeah, Burns is a very small 170-pounder. Tiger Muay Thai fighters are some of the highest level strikers in the UFC. I'm not sure I agree with that. Usyk could be a heavyweight champion if he trains with Craig Jones or develops world-class takedown defense. Yeah, I could definitely agree with that. I think that if he could stuff Tom's takedowns, he's finishing him in like a minute. If Song holds O'Malley, is he done for good? Definitely at 135. O'Malley will always have the option to move up to 145 because he's definitely very big for 135. But if O'Malley gets knocked out, he has to move up, and he's still probably doomed because that means his striking just isn't as good as people thought. UFC add a 165 and 225 pound division weight classes. I think that if they add 165, which there is an argument for, they should change welterweight to 175. But yeah, as long as they're willing to do that, I think they should add the two of them. These niche Welsh fighters are so overrated. I don't know why, like Mason Jones and Oban Elliott. Yeah, Mason Jones is wildly overrated. Oban Elliott, I don't think Oban Elliott is as overrated because no one was ever as high on him in the first place, but I do get what you're saying. Usyk when he eats a leg kick. I mean, he can train leg kick defense against like someone like Aspinall. Do you think MMA Shea overrates Tom Aspinall? I mean, what's his take on Tom Aspinall? Like, does he have a very high opinion of Aspinall or something? I feel like Carlos Ulberg is going to flatline Dominic Reyes, unfortunately. I mean, it's possible. Reyes is getting old, but I do think Reyes is better. Who's your favorite fighter of all time? I always struggle to answer that question. I mean, like, I enjoy watching Jean Silva fight. I enjoy watching Drake's fight. I mean, I also enjoy watching Benoit Saint-Denis fight. I don't know if I really have a singular favorite, though. He thinks he has great striking and great boxing. In that case, yeah, I mean, I disagree. Uh, I'm not quite sure what he's seeing, but yeah, no, I think that Tom has gotten countered by very, very low level fighters. Like, even if you watch the Tybura fight, like, yes, he ran through Tybura, but he also just ate a counter hook straight on the chin. And it's like, okay, if it wasn't Tybura and it was someone who actually has power there, you're getting slept. I honestly think Tyra's a worse matchup for Van than Pantoja. He could be just because of how dangerous Tyra is on the feet as well. MMA Shea defends Tom's boxing in a way that doesn't make sense to me. Fair. I mean, I can't say what he's seeing, but yeah, I mean, I don't agree with him on that personally. Have you ever been sad whenever a fighter has lost? Oh, for sure. I mean, I like Stipe a lot. I was sad whenever he lost. I'm sad whenever Jan Blachowicz loses. And plenty others. I definitely get. I'm not as like emotionally connected as I used to be, since now this is like something I have to do repetitively. But yeah, I'm still emotionally connected to fighters. Do you think Ulberg's skill set is weak? I think he's fairly versatile. Definitely not the strongest, but I can see him outpointing Reyes. I think that it's definitely not the strongest. Yeah, he's versatile, but not great anywhere. He could outpoint Reyes. It's definitely possible. Do you think Tyra will be able to stand with Moreno, or will he just have to keep shooting? I think he will be able to stand more with Moreno than people think. When I was a casual, I had a top 5 pound for pound list, but now I'm unable to make one. Every fighter's achievements and opponents are different. Yeah, that's a valid take. And it's going to take a freak athlete to KO Aspinall. Or just an athlete in general, but the heavyweight doesn't have any. Ngannou beats Tom. I might lean Tom against Ngannou because Ngannou's another one of those fighters whose fundamentals are just garbage. As someone who had Imavov winning last weekend, I was still shocked with how few low kicks Kaio through. They landed every time, and he only started throwing more in the later rounds. Yeah, I agree. Kaio's performance was weird, because even though I picked Imavov, Kaio did not fight like I expected him to. I remember being sad when Volk, Max, and Charles got KO'd. Valid, yeah. I'm sad whenever Charles loses also, yeah. I think I didn't really care when he fought Topuria because I knew he was getting knocked out. I was just like, oh, when is he getting knocked out? So I think that's like the first time I completely like emotionally detached from Charles getting KO'd, but I definitely get what you mean. Olberg looks so slow against Jan. Yeah, he did. DDP Chimaev too. Yeah, that's fair for sure. I have no idea who that is. You're saying Sleeps Aspinall, but fair. I literally don't see Hill having any good matchups in the top 10. He's just painfully untalented and unimproving. True. Bilal Muhammad is a prime example of how one could be champion just through grit and fight IQ. He isn't very skilled in grappling or striking. He also is just very, very lucky in terms of the matchups he was getting and such. So, like, yeah, it was grit, some fight IQ, and luck. Do you think Ngannou has the worst fundamentals? I think Ngannou has worse fundamentals, but he also has a better chin in all likelihood. So it still could be a very close fight. I mean, not close in like it's going to go to a close decision, but it closes in it's very hard to predict. How does Mokaev match up with the top 10? With the top in flyweight? I assuming. Okay, top in flyweight. I mean, not well. He's going to get smoked by anyone decent. What UFC fighter do you think you'd have the best chance against? I mean, if Matt Schnell's still around, I think I have a decent chance at chinning him. I think the speed got to Kaio. He looked like he was caught off guard by it and just didn't know what to do. Yeah, I just don't know why he didn't focus on throwing more low kicks and like maybe just clinching more to try to drain Imavov's gas tank. It was very strange to me, but Imavov did like punish Kaio's weakness on the back foot like I did expect that part. He's an NBA player. Okay, interesting. Gunnar definitely improved his fundamentals later in his career, more patient, better cardio management, double leg. I think great double leg is a bit of a stretch, but like, yes, he learned some wrestling and cardio management. I wouldn't say his boxing fundamentals were spectacular. He definitely really, really relied on his. They need to book Marav versus O'Malley 3 third time's a charm ballad. T1 Bilal hater, yes, for sure. Kaio definitely dropped the ball in his performance. Why would you try to outbox the guy with his best area, especially when he's more talented? Kaio's IQ is little in question. Maybe he got really thrown off by the Rufy loss, is all I can think of. Because I don't think Kaio's dumb, by any means. Dracos losing to Chimaev was probably the most devastated I've ever been after a fight. I hope people begin to realize how good he was as a champion. That's valid, yeah. Dracos was active, entertaining, and so on. Can you beat Kayla Harris in open weight? I haven't focused on wrestling recently enough, so no. I'm also nowhere near like how athletic I was when I was like actually very focused on training and not as hampered by medical stuff. Imavov is scary fast and not enough people talk about it. Yeah, agreed. He is very fast. I don't know why these fighters don't follow GSP's game plan to beat fast fighters by feinting. Valid, yeah, just not much fight IQ. Wait, what weight class? I'm assuming you're asking what weight class do you compete? Would you compete? I don't know, something like that. I can make 125 if I push it. I have made 125 before. 135 is definitely easy to make for me. Who do you think is the most overrated fighter right now? Most overrated fighter. Let's see. Maybe Umar. I think it might be Umar. Yeah. I'm all here for the Bolivian ballot. I think Ozag the Defiler is fighting Jan. Who do you think wins? Oh god. Imavov's body shots looks really crisp. I could see him doing well in a Strickland match with her kicks and pressure, but his lack of head movement is a problem. Yes. I think Strickland's always gonna be a bad matchup for him. Have you had any amateur/pro fights? Not in MMA, in pure striking though, yes. What are puck kicks? I don't know what that means. Did I like fumble over my words and said something weird? I don't know. Do you think Paul Hughes versus Usman Nurmagomedov 2 is going to be competitive like the first fight? Probably. I think it'll probably be another fairly close decision. If Joe Pyfer showed up to your doorstep to ask for advice, what advice would you give him? I would say to try to set up your knockouts more so than forcing them immediately, because I think that he fights like he has to kill his opponent. And if he just was like, okay, I'm going to do some damage and I'm going to wait for the knockout shot to open up instead of looking for it immediately, I think he would perform better, because I think that fundamentals are pretty solid and he has ridiculous power. Do you see the kicks of Umar being a problem for Jan at all, or is his pressure going to solve that? I think Jan's pressure will solve that. I think he's just going to keep walking forwards and Umar's going to get suffocated. I can't believe if JDM hadn't scrambled his feet in round 5, he would have lost the decision to Bilal. Should have been 5-0 across the board. JDM landed better than 4th. Yeah, I agree with you. That was a ridiculous scorecard. Joe Pyfer would get salty over a small amount of criticism. Very possible. I mean, he seemed better recently, but I think it was like, 3 fights ago, he was really bad. I don't know. I don't even think Bilal actually took Jack down aside from lateral drop in the 5th. I'd have to rewatch. I'm not positive. Careful there, Oracle Pyfer might visit you via salt portals. What advice would you give Bo Nickel? Nickel's a weird one because he has to like recomp his body, in my opinion. He looks very like fluffy for 185, but apparently like can't cut to 170. So I don't know what the deal is, but he definitely has to recomp his body, in my opinion, put on a lot more muscle and take off some fat. And then he really just has to work on his MMA wrestling. Like, know how to chain wrestle, know how to use the fence. Obviously, improve your striking. But you have to do better in the clinch, do better in these, like, transitionary positions that you're going to find yourself in MMA. Would you open your own MMA gym? If it was something that was affordable, sure. But very, very expensive, unfortunately. JDM didn't get up from below in the 5th, he would have gotten robbed. Yeah, unfortunately. Who's your favorite mythical fighter? TRT, Vitor, Karate Stance Connor, Horseman over him. I think Karate Stance Connor, maybe. Very entertaining and very disciplined at that time. You see Fluffy overwhelming Imavov in a 5-rounder, is he just going to have a very tough time closing the distance? It's a weird one, because Fluffy confuses me, because I had that video where I was like, oh, Fluffy's going to go really far in the division. But then I started thinking about his matchups, and when I start thinking about his exact tendencies, I'm like, I don't think this is good. But then he performs well anyway. So maybe my initial impression of just like his cardio is going to carry him was correct. I think Imavov could knock him out, but I don't know. You and Lucas Tracy stood alone on the BSD pick. Congratulations on the analysis. I saw everyone grilling you in the Instagram comments prior to the fight. Thank you. That was a very satisfying one because everyone doubted me on that one. I don't like watching women's MMA. It depends on the fight. There's some very good ones, but I think it's gotten a lot better. We're seeing a lot more finishes in WMMA. Tainted Horsemeat is still one of the worst excuses in MMA history. Yeah, probably. What goes into making Strat 2.5? I hear you say you're working long hours on it. Okay, so a lot of people are not going to be here for this explanation, so I'll try to make it brief. But basically, when you're making algorithms to predict UFC stuff, it's very easy to get to a certain point. But then, when you're trying to push past like sportsbook accuracy and trying to make it so profitable that like you're essentially just dominating over human predictions, sportsbooks, etc., every single percentage gets harder and harder, like exponentially. So with Strat 2.5, which is not aiming to be like a whole new iteration from Strat 2, but just like some mild improvements to hopefully make things more consistent, it's about like, okay, I want this to be an actual step up from Strat 2, so I need to start fighting for these smaller percentages and like trying hundreds and at this point probably thousands of different ways of eking out those small percentages of accuracy. I think JDM anti-wrestling / scrambling style work against Islam Sambo style of wrestling. He just has to watch out for the darts when he scrambles. Yeah, I mean, I think that his pressure will be better. I don't want him to be on the ground at all against Islam if I'm game planning for him. So just don't let Islam back him up to the fence because I think he can stuff the takedowns in the open. But I do get what you're saying. Let's boycott UFC after the power. Only start watching when they bring pay-per-view back. What do you think about Gordon Ryan saying it would take a year for DDP to catch up to Hamzat's grappling? I agree with that because I think if all DDP did every single day for a year was, okay, grappling defense, how do I get back to the feet, like repetitively? I think that DDP, again, is an intelligent enough fighter where he can make it work. But it would have to be disciplined. This is all we're doing. We're bringing in the best guys. We're investing the money, the time, whatever, and we're working on nothing else. Thoughts on Tatiana Suarez lost to Zhang? Was she never as good? Yeah, I mean, I always thought Suarez was a little bit overrated because she can't punch. Like, she literally just can kick from a distance and then literally try to run into the clinch and try to take you down from there. That being said, she should run through Lemos, but, like, yeah, she was never at Weili's level. Thoughts on the Kirk situation? Okay, so I'm not going to talk much about politics for obvious reasons on here, but since everyone is trying to say something and everyone wants to know my thoughts, I think that not just the US, but I think around the world as well, we're getting to a very, very weird time in history where tensions between everyone is increasing too much. And I think a lot of that is because it's gotten to the point where everyone vilifies each other due to small differences in beliefs and forgets that most people, generally speaking, just want a decent life for themselves and their families, right? Their exact beliefs might depend on where they grew up, who they grew up with, all of that stuff. But generally speaking, everyone just wants a decent life. And I think that between social media and other stuff, everyone forgets that and starts vilifying each other. And then we end up with a crazy society where everyone hates each other and everything starts collapsing. And I think we're getting to this pivotal point where we need to decide like who we are as a society and stop being insane, if that makes any sense. I don't know if any of that made any sense, but I hope so. Any early prediction for Shevchenko versus Weili? I'm leaning Weili, but I'm also very biased in that fight. Weili is definitely my favorite female fighter of all time. How about Fluffy versus Sean? I think weirdly Fluffy has a perfect style to beat Sean, but because Sean's defense is so good, it really feels like they cancel each other out. Split decision either way. That is very possible. Fluffy might just out-volume Sean to a decision, but I could also see him just having so many issues with Sean's jab that, like, he loses. Yeah, it's an interesting fight. I would have to think about that one more. Who were you most impressed with on Contender Series this week? The guy who knocked out Teague. I'm forgetting his name, but he was the only one I was impressed with. How does your algorithm work? It depends on how you want to use it, but basically you have unit sizes for moneyline bets, and then there's also percentages of fighters winning, percentages of methods of fighters winning, percentages of fights going the distance, and you can use that stuff to help make your bets if you want to do more complicated stuff other than just pure money lines. When you say working with percentages, do you mean the percentages in Strat 2? But what's the work? Like, are you film studying? Are you chatting with an AI? I'm confused exactly what you're asking. I'm saying in terms of developing the actual algorithms themselves, right? Because they're okay. So Vegas has a certain accuracy, right? Meaning that the favorite wins a certain percentage of the time. Now, for an algorithm to make money, you need to at least get close to that accuracy and then be better on a specific type of fight, let's say. So for example, let's say that Vegas only gets underdogs, or has favorites at like a 66% accuracy, right? Well, then if you're better at predicting underdogs than 33% accuracy, then you could just hypothetically bet underdogs and always make money that way. So you have to be better in a specific section, and preferably you want to have similar or better accuracy than Vegas in terms of how many picks the algorithm is getting right. So in terms of the accuracy of how many picks the algorithm is getting right, that is what gets harder and harder to improve over time. Kaya Zakura is really entertaining, but he lost twice. Yes, unfortunately. Strawweight grapplers strike like they started learning how to. Like they just started learning how to valid. Do you think how competitive... I assume you're saying, do you think the competitiveness of Islam versus Poirier was due to an underperformance from Islam or an overperformance from Poirier? Rewatching the fight makes me more confident in Prime JDM. I just think that Islam was a little bit overrated, to be honest. I think that he struggles to wrestle if he can't get you against the fence. That's always been a thing. And his striking is very predictable. So grateful to live in Poland. Valid. Hope you guys are doing well there. After watching Kyo's performance, I definitely agree with you. I literally don't see how DDP loses unless Kyo just mimics what Hamza did. Even then, it's a long shot with the weak shot. Valid. He made a great point, and social media and people reaffirming each other's opinions till extremism is the reason for the world becoming hell. Yeah, exactly. Are you going to watch the next Contender Series? I always watch Contender Series, even when it's not great, to say the least. Assuming you're saying, do you think RDR will maintain being at the top of middleweight, or do you see a downfall turn? Because it feels like he's on a Hail Mary run where if he loses, then his momentum is dead and he'll get picks off. Yeah, I think that if he loses to Fluffy, which I'm leaning towards him losing to Fluffy, even though it is possibly winnable for him, then he's probably going to get knocked out like 1 or 2 more times after and retire. Who should Roofy fight next? Maybe like a Chris Duncan level, maybe a little bit lower. Maybe Blagioki, I don't know. Oh, maybe Mason Jones. You know, actually, Mason Jones would be a great fight because it would test if he can deal with a little bit of pressure. And Jones is also a very, very, honestly, easy fight for Roofy as long as he's like not completely lost. But how algorithm predicts fights? It's a lot of math and a lot of stuff that is way too intricate to go into here. The sequence in which Ngannou takes down Henin in their fight is a way of defeating Aspinall if they were to fight ever. Aspinall really likes to blitz and rush and keep himself open for. I think the problem with that is that Aspinall's BJJ is just better than Ngannou, so I think he could potentially reverse position. When did you start glazing Jean Silva? After Contender Series. Ngannou's ground and pound against Henin was insane. Yeah, I mean, it was also mainly to the back of the head was the other issue. Who is the most unsure fighter you've seen on the top of a division in the UFC where you have no idea where they're crewed? Probably Fluffy right now. Can't wait for Jean Silva's 10th title defense. Same. Wasn't Roofy meant to fight Beneil? That wouldn't have gone well. I don't think that. I think that was just a rumor. I don't think it was ever like actually in talks. But it would have been interesting. If you're making rules, how would you reduce fouls? How would you punish fouls? I would say max of 1 warning. And you just start taking points. Does Lopes beat Vallejos or Danny Silva? I think he could beat Danny Silva. Vallejos definitely has a solid chance to win. What is Islam Dulatov's ceiling, I assume you mean to say, and can he make it to the top 50? I mean, he's young in his career, it's very hard to say. He needs to develop more, but he definitely could do it. Ngannou went into the Ferreira fight with the old reliable death murder kill style there. How does Prime UL do against Hamzat at 185? Prime UL probably wins. What part of the US are you from? New York. I think John is going to move up after 3 title defenses. Maybe even fewer, maybe like 2, honestly. Do you think they should start doing 2v2 team battles? While it would be fun, there's a lot of other stuff that has to be fixed first. I think Dariush would have beat that version of Roofy, and I think maybe that pressure, he's just always going to be the Achilles heel for me. I think the problem is that like BSD is more athletic than Dariush. With Dariush's like speed, and everyone's like, oh, like BSD is so slow. He's not that slow. Right? It's an exaggeration. Dariush is definitely slower. I could see him getting tagged, and he doesn't have the chin that BSD had. Because BSD did get hit a few times, but he's fine with that, right? He can eat most shots. Dariush, on the other hand, I don't know if he can. Hey, the Lord of Gaming. Shavkat versus Carlos, who wins? That's a tough one. I'd have to rewatch to see how much pressure Shavkat has, so I need to watch more Shavkat. I think RDR's guard game and ability to work off his back would probably make him Hamzat's nightmare matchup. The problem with RDR is that Chimaev could probably just chin him on the feet. Carlos might KO him. It's possible. Do you think John will be too small for lightweight? Not really. I mean, like Ilya's the same height as him, and he's doing fine. Did you go to college? Thoughts on college? Yes, I went to college. I'm not gonna say that. I think it really depends on your situation, right? It's not a bad fallback to have a degree, but in the modern world, it's also getting more difficult to get jobs no matter what. So it's like, if there's something that you're really passionate about and you think you can do, I'm not going to tell you like definitely go to college. There are definitely are alternatives, but be careful. Always like have a long-term plan in mind. Don't just do things based off the short term. Who would you favor between Aljo and Ellen? I'd really favor Ellen. Yeah, I'd favor Ellen a lot as well. Please tell me Oliveira will beat Fiziev. I think he can sub-Fiziev. Yeah, I think he could sub-Fiziev as well. Great content analysis. Wish you better health. See ya. Thank you. Have a good night. I really think Shavkat is so overrated, and Gary fight proved he will just wet blanket against the cage if he can't fight a finish. He was definitely very overrated, yes. I'm worried on behalf of Kaio. I think he doesn't have the same opportunity for a rebound as the other. But I think he's going to get a favorable matchup like Allen, like you're saying. But I do get what you're saying. We'll see. I don't know how John makes 145. He's huge, valid. Shavkat versus Islam, who wins, slightly leaning Shavkat. Yeah, I think I'm slightly leaning Shavkat right now also, but it's a tough one to call. Talbot or Wellmaker? That's actually a tough one. I think I'm going to say Wellmaker, just because Talbot's so easy to hit. Pico or Aljo? That's a tough one, actually. I'm going to say Pico because Aljo can't chin him. Do you think MMA is considerably unrefined compared to a sport like boxing? If so, do you think we're in the Jurassic Wild West era of MMA? I don't think we're quite still in like the in that era of MMA. I think it has evolved significantly since then, but I do think we're still much earlier than like say boxing. Yes, I think part of the reason why is because MMA has so many more elements than boxing that it can't be optimized nearly as easily. So I think MMA is going to take a lot longer to start getting to the optimization period. Of all the fighting nerds, who do you think will have the biggest downslide? Honestly, I don't think it will be a crazy one for any of them. I think they're all going to do okay for now. Rota said himself he's going to retire in 2 to 3 years. I don't know how much he's going to improve. A lot of fighters say that, and they stick around. We'll see what happens. Pitbull versus Vallejos. I take Vallejos. Thoughts on Arnold Allen ceiling? I think he's the most underrated fighter in the UFC right now. He's very good. It's just his inactivity makes things very tough. I mean, I think that he could potentially, like, I don't think he's beating Jean Silva, but maybe if, like, Jean Silva left the division, he could be champion, potentially. Pico had better defense, he could be champion. Yeah, I agree. Wild West era ended after the UFC absorbed Strikeforce and the WEC. That's definitely a possible argument there, yeah. What are your favorite fighters of all time? Like Oliveira, Jean Silva, Weili for WMMA. I don't think the conversation should be, is boxing more fine than MMA, but you could say overall boxing is just a huge problem in MMA, where there seems to be a wide lack of understanding wide lack of understanding of fundamentals. Part of the reason for that is because the fundamentals change when you change to 4-ounce gloves. So like pure like quote unquote boxing fundamentals don't actually work well in MMA. Like you need modified boxing. Would you be willing to help game plan for fighters if they reached out? Yes. Preparing for log exams right now. These fight nights keep me sane. Thanks for the breakdowns. No problem. Best of luck with those. Who would be someone you'd want to work with? I'm honestly open to working with anyone decent who's willing to listen. My biggest gripe with fighters, and I have worked with a few, is that a lot of them just don't listen. Like they will like ask for help, and then they will technically listen to what you say, and then they will just not do it. An Oliveira Chin Viziv on the feed. It is possible. Are you live streaming this card? I'm not sure how my voice and health is going to be in 2 days. We'll see. The other thing is I don't know how to solve the stupid like delay issue with the stream. So I don't know if like having a companion stream that's 5 seconds delayed is going to be the most entertaining. Aldo is my favorite of all time. He was just so mechanically and technically great, insanely well-rounded, so pleasant to watch. It's definitely a valid take. Predictions for Ankalaev Pereira 2. I have to lean Ankalaev at this point. It just doesn't feel like Pereira's taking this fight fully seriously, which is disappointing. Modified boxing is a perfect way to put it. Thank you for the breakdowns and for answering so many questions. Till next. No problem. Have a good one. For Jean Silva, what would be my coaching advice, if any? I would like him to be a little bit more active early in fights so that he can force the reads instead of waiting for them at times. I do understand that over 5 rounds it won't matter, he'll get the reads, but I think that he could finish fights a lot faster. Am I wrong for saying that Ilya's style is like modified peekaboo, similar to Poirier's modified Philly shell and such? I get what you're saying. I don't quite think so, though, because he's more reliant on the footwork to pin you. Because he is very pressure heavy. He's going to try to pin you against the fence to land the overhand. Pico beats Mobzar. There's a solid chance. I mean, Pico looked better than I thought he would in the short amount of time we saw him against Murphy. He could probably stuff Evloev's takedowns. And if he could do that, I do think he probably could beat Evloev on the feet. The question is, like, is he going to get chinned by something absurdly random because he has a terrible chin? It's possible. I don't think Evloev has Murphy's level of striking, though, so it's a better matchup for Pico, in my opinion. Pereira is currently 247 pounds. He's not even a diet at this point. That's crazy. I'm feeling I fade the Rafa Garcia and bet 15 units on Jean Silva. I mean, you could. It's up to you. I would say always spread out risk. Never have too much on one thing is how I play things. By the way, I'm the guy that bet my whole bankroll on Bukowski. Oh, okay. You're a bit more tolerant to risk than I am. Let's just say that. If it works for you, fair enough. I prefer to spread my risk a bit more with the betting, but yeah, I mean, whatever works. That round 5 showed me that Alex has the ability to beat Ankalaev, just needs to follow the game plan. He does have the ability to win, for sure. I just don't know if he will. Pico is bound to get hurt or KO'd by Murphy. He kept shooting takedowns directly into counters. Yeah, I agree. I definitely think that Murphy was, first of all, a bad matchup for Pico, and it's just very good in general. Really wish Pereira was taking this more seriously. Same, yeah. Do you trust Silva's chin? Rewatching the Dober fight, he was taking shots very well. All my worry for him versus Lopes power faded. Yeah, I do trust Silva's chin, generally speaking. If he fights the same way he fought in a 5 round, how likely is he to win? Oh, in round 5. My bad. he would have a pretty solid chance then, in my opinion. I mean, I would say probably 60% in that case. Do you think Bellator fighters transitioning to the UFC should stay out of the top 5? They definitely should not debut against someone in the top 5. I don't know why that started happening. Do you think Alex Pereira is overrated as a striker because he really can't counter on the back foot and his footwork? I do think he was a bit overrated. I think that he had like even if you look at the Jan fight, and this was an old version of Jan that I don't think was anywhere near his prime. Jan was doing very well against him. I don't think Alex was ever as good as people thought he was, even though he's definitely dangerous. Did you see Ukrainian girl on the train side? I try not to look at stuff like that because I don't want to get depressed, but I know what you're referring to. Yeah, it's unfortunate. World is crazy right now. Do you favor JDM to beat Islam? JDM is one of my favorites. Yeah, I'm leaning that way. Pico versus Murphy was so entertaining. If it was longer, it would be one of the best fights of all time. Valid. If Jan Alex was not high altitude, I think Jan would have won, to be honest. He just gassed out. Yeah, very possible. All right. I am starting to very much lose my voice, so I think we'll cut it off here. Appreciate you guys coming. Always value your guys' opinions, and I'll see if I'm going to be doing the companion stream. I don't know where my health will be at and such, and I'll also try to figure out the delay issue, but I don't know what is causing it, in all honesty. So yeah, everyone have a good night, and if I don't see you guys before the events, enjoy the events, and good luck betting if you guys are doing it. See ya.